Hi there! I bet you've come across the term risk management quite a lot. Especially recently, the world we live in is packed with uncertainties. That said, organization has to involve risk management in order to maintain its sustainable growth. Everybody has their own target, so everybody has their own risk to achieve that. Well, it makes everybody a risk manager. So, every individual will need to be competent in doing risk management for the organization to be mature in it. But, you gotta make sure that everybody is on the same page. You'd have to have the same basis for it, upon which mutual understanding will be cultivated. LSBMKS helps organizations to prepare their human resources to be competent in risk management based on the ISO 31000. And our assessment tools and activities are also based on it. Quick fact, ISO 31000 is an international standard of risk management that has been adopted by many countries as their official national risk management standard. And by going in line with the international standard and best practices, equipped by the VNSP license and ISO 17024 accreditation, the benefits you've gotten surely are plenteous. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next and beyond. Hi there! Have you ever heard about governance, risk and compliance? I bet you do. But how about the competency certification of them? Nowadays, it has never been so important for organizations to equip their people with these competencies. The question is, how could you be sure that the achieved skills are well standardized? Well, you gotta need a competency certification for it. But when you're about to choose a competency certification body, you'd have to make sure that the certificates are issued by a credible institution. Why does it matter? It surely relates to the validity, acceptance, and recognition of the certification itself. A quick way to know the credibility: look whether they have an official license or got accredited by relevant regulators. LSBMKS has the VNSP license and has gotten the ISO 17024 accreditation by CAM. So, these two attributes ensure the whole assessment processes are carried out based on the standard that has a high level of reliability. LSBMKS specializes on the area of governance, risk management and compliance. And since 2016, LSBMKS has rendered the services for more than 4,700 candidates, and up to now, we have more than 4,000 active certification holders. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next and beyond. Hi there! Many organizations in a wide array of sectors are expected to do a good governance practice. How could one be so sure an organization is capable to do a good one? Well, it all depends on the individual competencies of its people. You can have an impeccable system, but without competent resources, everything will go straight down the drain. That said, LSBMKS helps organizations to meet their need to improve the individual competencies on governance. LSBMKS adopts a good corporate governance implementation standard of KNKG and OECD, and we would also include the governance standard of ISO 37000. And by going in line with international standard and best practices, equipped by the BNSP license and ISO 17024 accreditations, the benefits you've gotten surely are a lot. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next, and beyond. Hi there! I bet you've come across the term risk management quite a lot. Especially recently, the world we live in is packed with uncertainties. That said, organization has to involve risk management in order to maintain its sustainable growth. Everybody has their own target, so everybody has their own risk to achieve that. Well, it makes everybody a risk manager. So, every individual will need to be competent in doing risk management for the organization to be mature in it. But, you gotta make sure that everybody is on the same page. You'd have to have the same basis for it, upon which mutual understanding will be cultivated. LSBMKS helps organizations to prepare their human resources to be competent in risk management based on the ISO 31000. And our assessment tools and activities are also based on it. Quick fact, ISO 31000 is an international standard of risk management that has been adopted by many countries as their official national risk management standard. And by going in line with the international standard and best practices, equipped by the BNSP license and ISO 17024 accreditation, the benefits you've gotten surely are plenteous. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next, and beyond. Hi there. Have you ever heard about governance, risk and compliance? I bet you do. But how about the competency certification of them? Nowadays, it has never been so important for organizations to equip their people with these competencies. The question is, how could you be sure that the achieved skills are well standardized? Well, you're gonna need a competency certification for it. But when you're about to choose a competency certification body, you'd have to make sure that the certificates are issued by a credible institution. Why does it matter? It surely relates to the validity, acceptance, and recognition of the certification itself. A quick way to know the credibility: look whether they have an official license or got accredited by relevant regulators. LSBMKS has the BNSP license and has gotten the ISO 17024 accreditation by CAM. So, these two attributes ensure the whole assessment processes are carried out based on the standard that has a high level of reliability. LSBMKS specializes on the area of governance, risk management, and compliance. And since 2016, LSBMKS has rendered the services for more than 4,700 candidates, and up to now, we have more than 4,000 active certification holders. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next, and beyond.
Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony is going to start in a few minutes. Please kindly check the ground rules for the event. Also, be ready to get more insights and turn over a new leaf for you and your organizations to a better future. Thank you. Sorry.
The most certain things in the world is uncertainty. 2020 has surely been a tough year to survive. It's been a messy, volatile, and rather chaotic world to live in. The sooner we understand it, the sooner we can come up with something, the sooner we can start dealing with it. What we humans do the best is survive. Have always been, will always be. However, it's quite a different story when we're talking about thriving. With enormous changes coming up, what we need is an integration, cohesion, and congruence, not silos, not separated. We need an integrated governance, risk, and compliance. GRC Summit is the third international conference where practitioners, academicians, and experts come together and share their best practices on integrated GRC. Now is the time for governance, risk management, and compliance to contribute in shaping a new, better world.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Welcome to GRC Summit 2021. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Cynthia, and I'll be your MC for today. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been more than a year since the COVID-19 pandemic struck all parts of the world and had a significant impact on the social and economic aspect globally. With the current circumstances, adaptation and agility are required for organization in facing the uncertain world situation. GRC Summit 2021 is the third annual seminar and masterclass event that gathers domestic and foreign GRC practitioners to discuss the latest practices of GRC implementation in organizations. This year, the GRC Summit took the topic of agility amid a chaotic world. We hope the participation in the entire series of seminar master event class will enable you to better understand how to build agility with an integrated GRC approach, and how the integrated GRC approach can add value to organizational resilience and sustainability. This event was initiated by GRC Association, Association of Indonesian Governance Professional PAGI, Indonesian Risk Management Professional Association IRMAPA, Institute of Compliance Professional Indonesia ICOPI, Indonesia Professional in Audit and Control Association IPACA, and supported by CRMS Indonesia, LSP MKS, LSP GRK, IRMA, and Top Business. To officially open the event, please allow me to welcome Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin as the Minister of Health of Indonesia to give a speech. To Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, the time is yours. Thank you, Mr. Sadikin, for the great opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering the first session of the GRC Summit. In this session, we will invite Mr. Michael Rasmussen to deliver a keynote speech on the GRC's role in contributing to the creation of better conditions for organizations, especially after the COVID pandemic. The session will be led by Mr. Jeffrey Siregar. Before we proceed to the session, for all the participants, if you have any questions, please write your questions in the Q&A chat room in Zoom meeting with the format we provided: name, _company, _question, _speaker. All selected questions will be answered in discussion and Q&A sessions. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our host, Mr. Jeffrey Siregar. He is Executive Director of the LKDI, Indonesian Institute for Commissioners and Directors. He is also actively involved as a member of the IIA, Institute of Internal Auditors, Indonesia, and the Executive Committee of the ARA, ASEAN Risk Award. Without any further ado, please welcome Mr. Jeffrey Siregar. The time is yours.
Thank you, Cynthia. Could you hear my voice clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers, panelists, and also participants from GRC Summit 2021. It is an honor for me, Jeffrey Sregar. I'm here now hosting the first session of GRC Summit 2021. As General Secretary of Indonesia Governance Professional Association, which we call PAGI. Yeah. So it is an honor for me to be here today, this lovely morning, sunny morning, because we had distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Michael Rasmussen. But before we move to the session, I would like to express my appreciation to my mentor, Dr. Antoni Salijoyo. He's a chairman of steering committee of GRC Summit 2021, and also here with us, Bapak Mas Ahmad Daliri, as a chairman of GRC Association. These two mentors has already promote corporate governance since more than 20 years in Indonesia. And we have here until now, GRC become a pivotal point, center point from attention for all of corporation, not only corporation, but also in public sector, become the most activity, the most system that we must become approach in this organization. So it is an honor for me to be here hosting this session, and hopefully this session will become the most insightful presentation from Michael Rasmussen. So I would like to introduce Michael Rasmussen. He is an internationally recognized pundit on GRC. Yeah, he has experience in more than 26 years. Yeah, he's helping organizations improve GRC processes and choose technologies that are effective. He's also thoughtful as keynote speaker, author, and advisor. Yeah, internationally, and is noted as the father of GRC. Yeah, being first in 2002 while at Forrester. Until now, he has held some certification. He is GRC professional, also a CCEP, Certified Compliance and Ethics Professional, as well as CISSP, Certified Information System Security Professional. OCEG has recognized him as an OCEG Fellow for his contribution and advancement of GRC practices around the world. Yeah. Also, the Institute of Risk Management has awarded him as an honorary life membership for his work in risk management and has appointed him as a global ambassador for risk management. So, without further ado, I welcome Michael to start his speech as a keynote speaker. So we can hear from him about 30 minutes. To Michael, the stage is yours.
It is my pleasure to be here today and be able to speak with each and every one of you virtually. I wish I could be there in person, but the circumstances of the world prevent that this year, but hopefully next year. I'm Michael Rasmussen, and I'm looking forward to presenting and interacting with you on the topic of GRC agility in a chaotic world. So I'll share some slides I have here, and hopefully those come up okay. So in that context, governance, risk management, and compliance amid a chaotic world demands agility as well as resiliency in organizations. I wrote a paper back in October 2019, before COVID-19, that was published in Enterprise Risk Magazine called Navigating Chaos. And the whole paper was focused on the dynamic nature of the world around us, the dynamic nature of regulations, the dynamic nature of risks, but the dynamic nature of business itself. Governance, risk, and compliance is really about navigating chaos, and therefore we need agility amid a chaotic world. The regulations are changing around us. Global financial services firms, just as one industry example, deal with 250 some regulatory change events every business day. That's a lot of regulatory change. But there's a lot of risk as well. There's geopolitical risks, shifts in industry standards and practices, shifts in customer demands and requirements, technology shifts. But there's also shifts in the business itself. Employees that come into the organization, they switch roles in the organization, processes change, technology changes, third-party relationships change. The challenge with governance, risk, and compliance today is trying to keep all this change in sync. We have to keep up with regulatory and legal requirements. We have to keep up with the changing external risk environment, as well as a changing business environment. And that's exactly what I mean when we talk about navigating chaos. The physicist Fritjof Capra stated, "The more we study the major problems of our time, the more we come to realize that they cannot be understood in isolation. They are systemic problems, which means that they are interconnected and interdependent." The physicist here at this point was talking about biological ecosystems, but he could have been talking about governance, risk, and compliance within organizations. The more we study the major risks of our time, the more we come to realize that they cannot be understood in isolation. They are systemic risks, which means that they are interconnected and interdependent. It is an interconnected risk environment. What starts off with one risk cascades into a variety of other risks, and the organization needs to be prepared to be able to address those risks in a very dynamic, disrupted, and distributed business environment. COVID-19 is just one case in point, but a big case in point. Business has changed. What starts off with a health and safety risk in the organization has a cascading impact on a variety of other risks. It has an impact on fraud, with the concern about the economy. Employees that normally would do good things might, under the economic circumstances, make bad choices when it comes to things like fraud. It has greater risk of bribery and corruption. And in that context, import and export has been closed in some countries or slowed down. There's been limited government contracts and permits. There's greater risk that somebody might bribe a foreign government official, and greater risk of bribery and corruption. We've seen greater risk of human rights issues like modern slavery as factories go dark because of this illness and sickness, and they reopen and people are using child labor and forced labor and things like that. We've seen increased risk of IT security issues as we've restructured processes and moved people to the work from home environment. You look around me and my TV behind me is connected to the internet. My speaker in front of me is connected to the internet. My wall outlets are connected. My blender in my kitchen is connected. I can program it with my iPhone. I have no idea why I would want to program my blender with my iPhone, but I can. If any of these devices had some type of Trojan horse or backdoor installed, it compromises my home network, where my business laptop is and the connections I have to companies. And this is all reality, as we've seen with SolarWinds and other ransomware attacks and things this year as well. Lots and lots of IT risk. So COVID-19 starts off with one area of risk in health and safety, but its exposure creates risk in a lot of other areas. IT risk, fraud risk, bribery and corruption risk, modern slavery risk, IT security risk, just to name a few. We can go on and on and on. Businesses change because of COVID-19. Managing business objectives in the midst of uncertainty has become a real challenge. ISO 31000 defines risk as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. The organization has entity-level objectives, division, department, process, project, or even asset-level objectives. We have objectives that are mapped to different parts of the organization. Risk management, as defined by ISO 31000, is the effect of uncertainty in achieving those objectives. And we have to be able to manage that uncertainty and be able to monitor it in the environment to make appropriate risk decisions to be agile and resilient in a chaotic world. Again, the lesson from COVID-19 shows us that we have an interconnected risk environment where health and safety risk cascades and creates greater exposure in bribery and corruption risk, fraud risk, IT security risk, and more. Objectives became dynamic as we have to adjust to the economic circumstances and change in organizational structures, the work from home environment, things being shut down, limited to no business travel and things like that. We have to change the objectives of the organization, what the performance goals are. We have to deal with continuous disruption as we deal with different waves of the COVID-19 pandemic and the exposure it puts on individuals and the health and safety of our environment. Lots of disruption now as we look at the Delta variant and its impact on the organization. COVID-19 has made us realize about the dependency on others. Today's modern organization needs to be agile, not just within traditional brick and mortar business, but in the extended enterprise. The modern organization is an extended network of third-party relationships. Suppliers, vendors, outsourcers, service providers, contractors, consultants, temporary workers, brokers, agents, dealers, intermediaries, and more. If we weren't in lockdowns and you're back in the corporate office, half the people that you walk by or sit with in conference rooms are not always traditional employees, but they are third parties. They are the outsourcers, service providers, contractors, and temporary workers. We have dependency on others. The organization is not defined, again, by brick and mortar business and traditional employees, but it is an extended enterprise of third-party relationships. We found out about the dynamic and nature and agile need for business. And values itself were defined and tested. COVID-19 brought us a lot of lessons learned to the organization. So today's organization, to be agile in a chaotic world, needs to be able to see the tree as well as the forest, that individual risk, as well as the interconnectedness of risks and objectives to help the organization achieve what it's facing in a dynamic and chaotic world. I present this slide in a lot of my workshops around the world, and a lot of people like the analogy of being able to see the tree as well as the forest. But I've also been challenged on it in 2 workshops, one time in San Francisco and another time in London, both by large global banks. They said it is a good analogy, but it's not detailed enough. That the reality in their environment is not just the tree and the forest, but it's also the leaves and the branches. Those little things matter and can come up and create a big risk issue. So beyond the tree, we got to get down to the details of risk itself on the leaves and the branches, they were saying. You have things like chaos theory. The theory where the flutter of the butterfly's wings, like in Europe, in the Netherlands, makes tiny atmospheric changes in the atmosphere that grow and cascade and grow and can influence the development and path of a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. That's chaos theory. Those little things matter. And we have to be able to understand that and be able to see the big picture of risk relationships in the organization today. Again, to be able to have agility in a chaotic world requires risk insight and intelligence, and to be able to see the interconnectedness of risk in the organization. So in that context, let's look at the official definition of GRC found in the OSEG GRC capability model. I helped author this model and work a lot with OSEG. And it defines GRC as a capability that enables an organization to reliably achieve objectives, that's the governance function, while addressing addressing uncertainty, which is risk management, and act with integrity, which is compliance. So GRC is a capability that enables an organization to reliably achieve its objectives, address uncertainty and risk in its environment, and act with integrity in the environment as well. That's what governance, risk, and compliance is all about. These are actions and processes of the organization itself. Technology can enable it, but GRC is much more than technology. It is about the behavior of the organization. And we need to be able to reliably achieve the objectives, and that's the governance piece, but we have to manage uncertainty. And as I've already stated, ISO 31000 defines risk as the effect of uncertainty on what? On objectives. So there's a relationship there. And we have to act with integrity to the values and ethics, the regulatory obligations and contractual commitments of the organization as well. So organizations are in the midst of a lot of change right now when it comes to GRC practices and strategy. We're moving from a past where there's been a lot of reactive approaches to governance, risk, and compliance, a lot of approaches that involved a lot of documents, spreadsheets, and emails, a lack of clarity on who is actually accountable for governance, risk, and compliance in the organization, We're moving towards a future of greater automation, greater accountability, greater focus on integrity and values of the organization, and risk management that is aligned with business performance and objectives of the organization to help steer and direct the organization to be agile in the midst of a chaotic world. So I am, in my research, monitoring 3 strategic trends that I'm following in 2021 in context of governance, risk management, and compliance, GRC. The first one is a big focus on integrity. That what the organization communicates to the world, that its values, its ethics, its practices, is a reality in its behavior in the organization. This is more than just regulatory compliance. This is about committing to the values out there. And in that context, we're seeing a lot of focus on environmental social governance, ESG. And it's through GRC that ESG can be delivered and reported. ESG, again, environmental social governance, is a reporting framework. And we have things like the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, and others out there that provide frameworks for reporting. But how you actually monitor and deliver that isn't always clear. And that's where governance, risk management, compliance comes in, because GRC is an enabler for ESG reporting, if you can follow all my acronyms. And so integrity is becoming critically important. Investors are making decisions based on the values and commitment to the environment, to the social practices, and the governance of the organization, ESG. Customers and employees are making decisions on who they do business with or who they get employed by ESG. Regulators are enforcing things. There's a huge focus on the integrity of the organization, and that's one of the big trends in GRC in 2021. And we need to be, we need to be agile in a chaotic world. We need to make sure and ensure that we maintain our integrity amidst all that risk and regulatory and business change. We also have to be resilient. There's a huge focus on resiliency right now. Obviously, COVID-19 plays into this significantly. As we looked at business continuity programs, a lot of organizations have come to realize that they need to revise these programs. And I've been stating for 15 years, I do not understand why business continuity is buried in the depths of the organization over here, and then enterprise and operational risk management is over here, and these two parts of the organization don't talk to each other. It doesn't make sense. I'm seeing a lot of organizations refocus and re-architect their approach to GRC by bringing risk and business continuity together into one program and creating what we're calling risk and resiliency programs. There's a huge focus on resiliency, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide. But then we're also seeing a big trend and focus on integration. How integration of different departments and functions that can work together collaboratively in a GRC strategy, such as audit, risk management, corporate compliance, IT security, legal, and others. How do we get these different roles to work together in a cohesive strategy and processes? But how do we enable them with information and technology? Those are the 3 strategic trends that I'm following in 2021 in context of governance, risk, and compliance to address agility in a chaotic world: integrity, resiliency, and integration. But let's look at risk culture for the agile and resilient organization. I'm going to advocate that resilience is not enough. It's important, it's critically important. I'm not saying we ignore resilience. We need strong resiliency and resilient practices and processes in the organization. But resiliency is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Or to put it in a risk management environment, it's the capacity to recover quickly from a risk event where risk is materialized, like COVID-19, or like a natural disaster, or an economic failure, or something like that. Resiliency is the ability to recover quickly. But what's more important, the ability to recover quickly or the ability to be agile and navigate the environment to avoid risk events? You know, not only do we need resiliency, but organizations need to have agility in a chaotic world. Agility is the ability to move quickly and easily, ability to think and understand quickly, to be able to react to the environment around you. When we look at operational resilience regulations around the world, My favorite is in the United Kingdom, where you have the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, the Bank of England, and the PRA, the Prudential Regulatory Authority. You know, their operational resilience regulation actually talks about agility, not just resilience. It is the only definition of operational resilience that I found that talks about the ability to avoid events, not just recover from events. It brings in that aspect of agility, not just resilience. And we need both of these aspects in a strong GRC strategy to in the midst of a chaotic world. We need to be agile organizations as well as resilient organizations. We also need accountability and not just responsibility. Responsibilities can be given to somebody else. I can pass responsibilities. I can outsource responsibilities. Accountability is different. Accountability means things stop here. I own this. I cannot give this to somebody else. If there's an issue, I've got to deal with it. Accountability is different, but related to responsibility. We're seeing a huge focus in GRC on accountability regimes. Again, this started with the United Kingdom with the senior managers and certification regime. It went over to Ireland with the senior executive accountability regime. It went down to Australia with what was the BEAR regime, the banking executive accountability regime, that's now becoming the FEAR regime, the financial executive accountability regime. It was over in Hong Kong with the managers in charge regime. And now it's in Singapore with the individual accountability and conduct regime. It puts senior management functions, executives that are ultimately accountable, not just responsible, but accountable for different areas of conduct, risk, compliance, resiliency, and so forth. If there's willful misconduct, those senior management functions under the United Kingdom's law could go to jail. If there's lack of due diligence or negligence, those senior management functions can actually be fined out of their personal bank accounts, not the organizations. We're seeing a huge focus on accountability for governance, risk, and compliance, and where senior executives and senior management functions are actually accountable, not just responsible. Good risk management and agility in a chaotic world also requires creative GRC thinking, being able to look at risk structurally as well as creatively in the environment. Historically, we focused a lot on left brain risk thinking. This is the logical and structured thinking about risk management, where we have our risk models and we can do our Monte Carlo analysis and Bayesian modeling or whatever it might be. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of the Sherlock Holmes series, stated it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. Left brain thinking is important about risk, but it also has its limitations because models can only reflect so much of the real world. There's so many variables and interrelationships and complexities to risk in the real world of business and in life that models have their limitations because they can't take all those inputs and variables and properly model them. They're good to be able to run through scenarios and help us, but we also need creative thinking about risk, the right brain, creative, imaginative thinking about risk management, where you can visualize and see risk relationships that a human can be very intuitive about that models might not necessarily see. Alvin Toffler stated, you can use all the quantitative data you can get, but you still have to distrust it and use your own intelligence and judgment. The point here is that we need intuitive risk management that's creative, visual, and imaginative as well. A lot of organizations on the left brain side might not have completely analyzed how a global pandemic might unfold in the organizations and impact other risks. A creative approach to risk management could start to see these relationships and think outside the box, not just inside the box. And what I'm advocating in this slide is that we need both. Not that we eliminate one or the other, but that good GRC thinking is going to involve both left brain thinkers that think logically and structurally about risk management, as well as right brain thinkers that can think creatively and imaginatively thinking about risk management. You bring the left brain and right brain together and you've got agility, GRC agility in a chaotic world. We need to make sure that we provide proper collaboration to the organization. where different departments and functions can come together, work together cohesively in a GRC strategy. I used to talk about this analogy as being harmonization, but the idea of harmony doesn't go far enough. It's really orchestration. You take a good piece of classical music, and that piece of classical music has beautiful elements of harmony where everything's working together and flowing together, and all the parts are in unison. But then you also have points of tension and resolution. And that's actually what GRC is about, is being able to get different departments and functions to work together, but not just in harmony, but to be able to provide proper checks and balances and segregation of duties. And so that if audit finds some issue, it can raise a flag and say, hey, we have a problem here and it needs to be addressed. There's proper tension and resolution, as well as harmony and working together. And we have to get a lot of different departments and functions to work cohesively in the organization and throughout the enterprise to be able to provide GRC collaboration. And that is so necessary to address agility in a chaotic world. As I've already referenced, we have the concept of COVID-19 that has unfolded before us and a huge health and safety risk and pandemic globally that has impacted economic risks and supply chain risks and bribery and corruption risks and fraud risks and IT security risks and so much more. All these risks are often managed in different departments and functions in the organization. And it's only when we come together collaboratively to be able to see these risk relationships, again, using our left brain and right brain thinking together, that we can start addressing risk in the organization to be agile in a chaotic world. This means that organizations need to have a clear and cohesive top-down strategy for governance, risk management, and compliance in their organization to enable the organization to reliably achieve objectives and address uncertainty and act with integrity within their organization. This starts with the GRC management strategy itself, that we have a clearly defined strategy, that we know what executive is in charge of the GRC strategy, but it is also what we would call a federated strategy, that there's multiple departments, roles, and functions that involve and participate in governance, risk, and compliance. There can be an executive that leads and coordinates it, but it doesn't start and stop with one department. That GRC management strategy needs to extend to risk management, IT security, corporate compliance and ethics, legal, audit, accounting and internal control, HR, and other processes in departments. We need to bring that strategy together. That strategy also needs to enable and equip not just the back office functions, what we call the second and third line functions of risk and compliance and audit and security, but also the front office. Those front office employees are making risk decisions every day. That doctor and nurse at a hospital are making patient safety and patient privacy decisions every minute of the day. The coal miner or down in the mine, mining coal or gems or whatever it might be, they're making environmental decisions and health and safety risk decisions every day. Our GRC management strategy is not just about the engagement of the back office functions, but also the front office. We need to clearly understand what our GRC management processes are in the organization. Our processes to identify risk, assess risk, analyze and treat risk, and monitor risk. Our GRC management processes for policies, for writing policies so that they're consistent in the organization, communicating and educating employees on policies, and from there, monitoring the policy and enforcement. To the same thing with internal control processes, investigations and incident management and case management processes, third-party risk processes, and more. Our GRC management strategy that flows down into our GRC management process architecture. From there, it flows into the information technology architecture that can support this and enable this in today's dynamic, distributed, and disrupted business environment to allow GRC agility in the midst of a chaotic world again. GRC management is a top-down approach that starts with your strategy and getting different departments to work together, and that filters into the processes that is then supported in the information technology architecture. So let me give you 5 steps for defining a GRC strategic plan in your organization. The first one is that it is critical to plan your journey out ahead of time. You're on this mountain and you need to get to that mountain. What you need to do is start and understand, what is your current state? Where are you today in governance, risk, and compliance? From my perspective, everybody listening to this is doing GRC today, whether you call it GRC, ERM, ORM, or you don't even have a name for it. Every organization has some approach to governance, risk, and compliance. So it starts with understanding, what is your current state? Where are you at today? What are you doing? What's working and not working? It could be very immature, ad hoc, broken, reactive. It could be a very structured and well-working program that just needs some tweaks. But you start off by understanding what your current state is. Where are you today? And then define, what is your future state? What do you want it to look like in 2 or 3 years from now? And then what's your roadmap and journey that's going to get you to that future state? The next step is that conditioning is critical. You want to make sure your team and systems are ready. What different departments and functions need to be involved in the journey? How can you get them to work together cohesively and collaboratively in your environment? This is absolutely critical, because this isn't just one department running a GRC strategy. Governance, risk, and compliance, with the goal to reliably achieve objectives while addressing uncertainty and act with integrity, requires multiple departments to collaborate and work together. Departments of corporate compliance, finance and accounting, internal control, IT security, enterprise and operational risk, and more. We need these different departments to work together and collaborate and participate into the strategy that we're planning. Step 3 is to carefully select your equipment for the GRC journey. If you're going to climb a mountain, you don't just throw everything in a bag. You carefully select your equipment for the task. You want to make sure that you have the right information and technology, as well as process architecture, to achieve what you're trying to address in that journey, what your final state is. Remember that first slide here, I'll go back to it. We defined what our current state is and what our future state is. Here, we want to make sure we have the right technology in place, the information and technology architecture that can deliver on that future state. If you're climbing a mountain, you don't want to find out that you only have enough equipment to get halfway up and you've got to go back down and start all over again. Your project's going to fail at that point. If you have a GRC journey you're starting on to improve governance, risk, and compliance of your organization, you need to ensure that you have the right foundation, that right information and technology, as well as process architecture that can deliver not only on your current state, but the future state that you're aiming for. The next important consideration is you need to tackle a GRC strategy in stages. A good journey is not done with one effort, but it is broken down into stages. If you climb Mount Everest too fast, what happens? Well, you die. Your body actually has to acclimate to the altitude at certain levels before your body is actually physically ready to get to the next level. If you take on Mount Everest too fast, if you're not used to it, you will die. The same thing with a governance, risk management, and compliance strategy in your organization. If you have a lot of change and things that need to happen, you need to break it down into stages that can be achieved and not take on too much too quickly where things get broken. You need to break things down into stages. But then you also need to understand that your journey, your GRC journey to address agility in a chaotic world is never really over. For the past 18 months, we've been struggling with COVID-19. We don't know what next year is going to bring or the year after that. It is a risky world. It is an interconnected world. And there's lots of geopolitical risks. There's lots of environmental risks. There's the health and safety risks and IT security risks and so much more. We don't know what's going to happen, but it might not even be a big risk event. You might be building a GRC strategy, but then your organization undergoes a huge merger and acquisition. And there's another large company coming to the organization with completely redundant controls and risk management processes and policies and things. And you've got to harmonize and integrate these in your organization. That's what's exciting about governance, risk, and compliance. It's dynamic. It requires agility in a chaotic world. There's always things happening, and we've got to address it. This isn't a boring field to be in. This is an exciting field to be in. And we need to be constantly monitoring our external and internal environment for changes that can impact the organization. So the benefits of what I propose to you is that you should be able to provide 360-degree contextual awareness of governance, risk, and compliance in your organization. Situational awareness. Agile GRC in a chaotic world means that different departments and functions are working together cohesively in the organization to address risk and compliance so that the organization could reliably achieve objectives while addressing uncertainty and act with integrity. If we're building a strong, appropriate GRC strategy, like on the OSEC GRC capability model, it should help us become more aware of our environment, more aware of the interconnectedness of risks, like how a health and safety pandemic risk can intersect with an IT security risk. Who would have thought of that? Or a fraud risk, or a bribery and corruption risk. We become more aware because we're collaborating across these different risk departments and looking at scenarios, and we're thinking about risk logically and creatively, and being able to see insight to become more aware of our environment, our external internal environment. This allows us to align and work together across these different departments and functions to address risk so that we can reliably achieve objectives. And when risk does happen and starts to expose itself, we can become responsive to address that while still a small issue before it becomes a big issue. This again allows us to be agile, to be able to navigate our environment, to be able to see what's going on around us with contextual, situational awareness, and be able to react quickly to avoid bad things from happening, not just having to respond to them. But bad things do happen, and therefore we need to be resilient, to be able to recover quickly from an event, and to be able to bring the business back up. And we need to do so in a way that is efficient with our human and financial capital resources. That's GRC agility in a chaotic world. To bring together a strategy to become more aware of risk and the interrelationships of risks, align our program together to be more responsive, agile, resilient, and efficient in a chaotic world. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to our host here to go through a Q&A time.
Thank you, Michael. This is very comprehensive, clear, concise, and very insightful presentation from the GRC Pandit International. So I would like to read some questions that already have in question and answer box. Before that, I would like to remind participants to raise question from Q&A box with format name, company, and question. So, Michael, I would like to read you first question from Sultan Iqbal. Yeah. To Michael and GRC expert, he asked about how long do you think this pandemic will last? Well, I don't think Michael has the answer for that. And regarding construction and other infrastructure businesses, will they still survive and thrive? Because the current conditions are mostly focused on health and vaccines. What kind of risk management must construction and building material business owner do to be sustained from their business?
Well, that's going to get into several things. One is the cash and liquidity to be able to survive downturns because of a pandemic in the economic environment, is to make sure that there's proper savings and things in place to be able to weather, downturns in the market where there's less demand for construction. Another aspect to be closely monitoring is to go through scenarios so that when we do have something like a pandemic or other risk, we understand those scenarios and how they play out and how we're going to react. There's no perfect scenario, and so sometimes employees might need to be laid off and business restructured so that the business itself can survive, and then at a later point bring people back on board as well. You need complete clear scenario analysis and planning to address things like pandemic risks and know how you're going to respond to different levels of a risk. Because even like a health and safety risk, like a virus, might have minimal impact to significant global impact, and there's different scenarios there. But another key aspect of risk management in construction and building is even the supply chain. And we've seen a lot of that with supply chain issues for building materials and things like that, with import and export being restricted and factories being shut down and things like that. So even if business starts to recover, you might still have slow supply chains where you can't even deliver for your clients as well. And so having redundancy in your suppliers, it becomes critically important as well, and understanding the supply chain risks in that industry. And that's just scratching the surface. There's a lot more detail we can go into.
Okay, Michael, and then the second question from my colleague, Victorio Cajo, the General Secretary from GRC Association. What are the most important things, key success factors and key failure factors for organizations can take to strengthen the agility and the adaptability of their GRC programs in dynamic and disruptive situations?
Well, that's a very complex answer, because that answer is going to vary by the size of the organization and the industry of the organization, because there's different processes and things to monitor. It's different in a bank from a hospital to life sciences, pharmaceutical company to a transportation company. Every industry is going to have different, key risk indicators that would be the key failure factors, or key performance indicators, which would be the key success factors that's named there. And so that's going to be very industry specific. But you want to clearly first start off with identifying what are the objectives of the organization, the entity level objectives, the overall objectives of the entire organization, as well as the division, department level objectives. And then what are the risks to achieving those objectives? And how do we measure that uncertainty? And what are the key risk indicators that we need to monitor to reliably achieving those objectives in those different parts of the organization? And so we can look at the organization from like HR functions, human resources, to IT functions, to finance and accounting functions, to operations out there. And we can define those key risk indicators as well as the key performance indicators in each of those different departments and functions, and closely monitor them so we can be agile and adaptable in a dynamic and disruptive environment.
Okay, next question from Titania. She wants to ask, do you think the government could standardize the implementation of the agile aspect? Because if not, there will be control issues, increase in fraud risk. I mean, to make sure the company not using agile principle too much, so that company lose their internal control, or technically increasing the red flag risk. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The point is, could government standardize the implementation of the agile aspect? Because if not, there will be control issues such as increasing the red flags risk. Standardization of government, is it possible? Or
I mean, the agility aspect, I'm not quite sure, because that's actually would be dictating how companies perform. I see more focus on the resiliency aspect, and so there. Okay. I mean, in the United Kingdom with the FCA, you do see part of the focus on the agility to be able to avoid events that you see in that regulation. But most of what I see is on the resiliency side. I think what's important is that the government, I think it's not necessarily a regulatory requirement that gets very prescriptive, like a checklist on agility, but I think it's more of a principle requirement on an outcome. I mean, does the organization have an agile environment? What are they doing to address agility should be looked at.
Okay, so you think the government portion should be focused on a resilience aspect?
But that's where I see most of the effort,
okay,
yes.
Okay, thank you. So, Michael, next question comes from Muhammad Agustian. How can GRC be applied in the company's business process, especially in the decision-making of directors, without having to ignore speed and agility in corporate decision-making? Because with the implementation of GRC, sometimes additional steps to make sure uncertainty and integrity are needed, which require time in implementation, which causes decision-making to take a long time.
And that's where good contextual information allows us to provide greater insight more rapidly, and automation as well I mean, I've seen organizations that take 200 employee hours to build a report for the board of directors on GRC as they work on strategy, because everything's done in documents, spreadsheets, and emails and assessments, and it takes a lot of time to gather that information. A good information and technology architecture to GRC means a lot of that information that might have taken us 200 hours to build a report, literally that is experience of one company I interacted with, is now available in less than a minute. It's there. And so having good contextually relevant GRC information that we can understand in a business context as the organization executes and develops its strategic plan and objectives, I think is critically important there.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And next, from Nikotut Budi Cahyani from Traveloka. What would be the best structure in organization to ensure GRC implemented with agile and resilience?
Oh, wow. First off, I mean, again, this answer could vary by industry and size of organization. Because I mean, large organizations can have a lot more resources to work with, while a small organization, people have to wear multiple roles and responsibilities. And so that becomes quite complex. But to me, what is needed is good ownership, where risk and compliance type functions in the back office are there to facilitate and engage, but ultimately it's about the culture and best risk decisions that are happening in the business itself. There was a great article in The Economist magazine about 15 years ago called Goldman Sachs Behind the Brass Plate. And I'm not talking about Goldman Sachs today, but 15 years ago. And it was an interesting article when you read the details of it, because it actually explored Goldman Sachs' risk culture and how they developed a culture of risk taking. They were known for being very aggressive. They took on a lot of risk, but they brought great returns. And the article actually compared them to Lehman Brothers, who, in 2008 in the financial downturn destroyed them. And Lehman Brothers didn't get the returns of Goldman Sachs, but they were known to be very conservative in risk taking. And so Goldman Sachs was very aggressive. It took on a lot of risk, but for great return. But one of the key things that they did was risk was a collaborative decision. If you're making a significant risk, you had to get other people involved and to get multiple inputs on it. If you were taking risks just by yourself without getting other people's input, you were fired. You were shown the door. To me, I think that's a great structure to ensure GRC implementation with agility and resilience, is to build a culture within the risk owners that are in the business itself that requires strong collaboration and input from multiple people to get insight on significant risks.
Thank you, Michael. And next question from Krisantia. The question is, what are the early stages to increase awareness of risk mindset in a company that has relatively low risk awareness?
I mean, first you want to build, understand what the risks are to your organization, and those should be particularly aligned with the objectives of the organization. So to build risk awareness, and because we can talk about risk all day long, but to put it contextually where businesses can take it seriously, you've got to put it in the context of what the business understands, and that's the objectives and performance of the organization. And so understanding what those organizational level objectives are, or department or division, whatever it might be, and clearly defining the risk to achieving those objectives and the different scenarios how that risk can unfold, I think that's a key way in providing risk awareness. A greater thing to provide increased risk awareness and mindset in a company is to build that risk culture of accountability. That it's not back office functions of risk management do not own the risk. It's the front office, the line of business, the business managers that own the risk. And that needs to be clearly communicated and understood that they actually own this risk, not the risk officer.
Thank you, Michael. And the next question from Dodi Silviadi, PLN Insurance. Referring to your explanation of creating a GRC strategic plan from step 1 to step 5, in my perspective, it is very similar to play golf. With the aim is getting the best score, has to be 0 mistakes. How do you see which step has a tendency the most difficult to address? Thank you.
I think all those steps are can be difficult to address. I mean, a lot of organizations, put things backwards. Where I've been called into organizations that says we just bought GRC because they bought some technology. Now come and tell us how to do GRC. It's like that's putting the cart before the horse. That's backwards. So I see people leveraging the wrong technology. I see people or see organizations that don't get the right team on board, particularly because there's internal politics and some people don't want to play well with the strategy. I see people that really don't define what their project plan and what their end goal is, what they're trying to achieve. So I mean, the risk, and I've seen a lot of project failures on that Mount Everest slide, where people take on too much too quickly, and things fail because they don't have the resources, and the business can't adapt to the change.
Yeah, that's interesting about what you said before about the GRC technologies means similar to GRC implementation, but it's only the final stages of GRC implementation. So maybe the backward approach in this GRC implementation. Thank you. Okay, then from Ted Margono, do you see major global conglomerate manage their GRC in their empire? For example, some companies have so wide of business that differs from their main business. How do they implement the GRC? Would it serve as services from corporate, or would this be also required at business level? For example, Toyota has not only auto manufacturing, but also has food and beverages businesses, which clearly has different GRC requirements.
I've definitely seen a lot of different approaches in this area, but for a very diversified business, a lot of times they will allow GRC reporting and management down at that local division level. And you might find one division like uses one technology and has this process and structure, and another division might be using something completely different. Because they're looking for what best fits into that part of that organization for that industry. But we're seeing more and more requirements that span the organization at that top level that can bring in things. We're seeing this in Germany right now. Germany's got an audit standard called IDW PS 340. And in large organizations like a Deutsche Telekom and Merck and Deutsche Bank and many have to respond to this particular audit standard, IDW PS 340. And it requires risk normalization and aggregation from all the different divisions and subsidiaries into more of the enterprise risk report. That these departments and divisions might have their own structures and GRC processes and technology, but now there's a requirement at the entity level to be able to bring and harness all this together from disparate systems and integrate it.
Thank you, Michael. And then from Nikotut again, Traveloka. First question is what would be the best strategy to implement risk culture across organization? And second question, looking at the current pandemic conditions specific for credit risk, what would be the best strategy for providing credit to be able to think out of the box?
Oh, wow. I mean, risk culture to me starts with the definition of risk and communication of risk and risk culture and policies. I mean, I've worked with some organizations on developing enterprise risk policies and clearly establishing culture and things in that area, and communicating that and providing collaboration on risk and risk workshops to help build that culture and awareness as well. The credit risk question is a more difficult one because I'm not a specialist in credit risk. I focus a lot more on operational risk ones. I'd have to think on that one.
Okay, thank you. Then from Probi Barmawanto, Nexia KPS. As you mentioned, we need agility. How much we have? Currently, environment changes so fast. Do you think it is still possible to design GRC strategy for more than 1 year?
I do think you can do it for more than 1 year. I'd like 2 or 3 year plans. I mean, okay. 15 years ago, we're talking about 5-year plans, but just as this question addresses, 5 years, a lot changes. So I think a 2 or 3 year plan is more accessible. 1 year is part of that 2 or 3 year plan, and you need to be agile in your plan and be able to address changes and things that development. But I still think 2 or 3 year plans are achievable.
Next question from Zulkifli. Do you think resilience equal to have more deposit money or other liquidity because this in this disruptive era, to have more money, some business decided to reduce the cost, mainly from labor or worker?
I think that's an aspect of it. And when I talk about resiliency, I talk about business resiliency and operational resiliency. So operational resiliency is going to look at the processes and the employees and the relationships and things like that. Business resiliency includes operational resiliency, but also looks at the liquidity and cash resiliency of the organization as well. And obviously there's a relationship there. Good resilience is going to entail the liquidity as well.
Okay, next question from Jamila Nur. How the GRC can manage the changes in political dynamics that affect our company? I think this is difficult for you to answer, but
it is. I mean, some organizations have strong lobbying organizations. I mean, like Walmart and others in the United States have huge like lobbying efforts to influence regulations and things in the direction that they want to see them go. But in general, we need to definitely monitor geopolitical risk and understand how it's going to affect the company. And from there, clearly have scenarios laid out as things unfold with geopolitical risk and how the organization is going to adapt and respond to that. So have those scenarios clearly defined.
Next question from Fitri Andriani. Mentioned above on step 2, conditioning is critical. Make sure your team and systems are ready. Could you please give more elaborate example? Yeah, priority list or for what our company institution need to be prepared when developing GRC on the early stage?
Well, making sure that people are aligned in a common vision and mission of GRC is important. The different departments and functions. And that's where I mentioned conditioning is critical, making sure you have the right team on hand, that you have a clearly defined goal of what you're trying to achieve. This comes together in some type of charter where multiple departments work together, and that charter defines the organizational structure, what the vision and mission is, what the goals are, how often a committee is going to meet and work together, things like that. Having that charter and strategy document clearly defined, I think, is very important in developing and preparing a GRC strategy at an early stage.
Okay, and then next question from Nurul Ihsan, SBI. In all of digitalization happening, which also pushed by the pandemic situation, ideally, how often should we check on our GRC system or internal control status to be able to absorb and adapt to the agility itself?
I'm thinking, I mean, to me, you want to have continuous monitoring of the environment. You want to have strong dashboards and alerts that can be pushed off and notify people. That's where a strong information technology architecture that can monitor transactions and different risk intelligence services and things can triangulate and aggregate that information and notify you when there's issues and things happening. So, I mean, ultimately, the goal is to have some type of continuous monitoring of the environment that's ongoing to alert us. Okay.
Next question from KTV. From your experience, is there any case examples where a company organization that have succeeded on implementing these agile GRC strategies?
Oh, I mean, there definitely are out there. There's many that have done. I mean, nobody says they're perfect. They follow us. We've got it all figured out. We don't see that, but we are seeing that there are organizations that have done some great things. Several years ago, I really liked Microsoft's approach. Brad Jewett, he was the enterprise risk director there. He's now the controller or CFO at Corel Corporation. But he had this whole approach called rhythm of risk that, in that context, I'm going to understand at Microsoft what's on the board agenda and the executive agenda on their calendars and their meetings. And I'm going to have people that are going to provide contextually relevant risk information that aligns to what they're talking about in those meetings. It was a very agile approach and provided a lot of value.
Okay, I think this will be the last question. We can accommodate from the session because the time is running out. The last question I would like to read about from Chato Priodi, IAGF. How can GRC help organization to succeed its business and corporate transformation? What are challenges and preconditions?
I mean, to me, that GRC needs to be involved in business change so that when there is business and corporate transformation, that we're addressing governance, risk, and compliance as part of that transformation. You know, I think we can adapt Six Sigma type processes. I personally like Japanese Kaizen type approach of dealing with those small incremental changes and things to completely and continuously aligning and transforming the organization. And to me, governance, risk, and compliance should be embedded in business and corporate transformation, not just an additional layer.
Okay, Michael, thank you. That would be the last question to be to this session. So I would like to have, I don't think it is a conclusion because as Michael said, GRC is a process, GRC is a journey. So I think I would like to add some brief point from this session. I will be an interested analogy from Michael. It said we have to see S3 as individual risks and the 4S as interconnected of risk and objectives. However, the detail of risks such as leaves and branches should be addressed too. So as we all know, even the invisible risks such as virus, COVID-19 makes us become a chaotic world, as Michael said earlier. But I think GRC is one of the system that could be the way out. We have agile and resilient organization in the future because with GRC we have so many activities, so many programs, so many processes, collaborated and integrated each other, so we can help and our organizations also make some point to survive and achieve our objectives at the end of the day. So I have to say thank you to Michael Rasmussen for this presentation and have some point that make us aware. This is the first session that makes us open our mind to have some insight about how important GRC implementation in our organization. So thank you, Michael, for this opportunity to have you here, even virtually. Hopefully we can be offline session during next year, maybe. So
I look forward to it.
Okay. So we still hope this pandemic will be over so we can meet offline. So thank you again, Michael, and I would like to say thank you all for this session. Please, MC Cynthia, to have the next session. Thank you and good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rasmussen, for your presentation. Such a fruitful and enlightening insight you've given. Thank you, Mr. Siregar, for hosting the discussion. Also to the participants, I can see a lot of curiosity and enthusiasm about this topic in the Q&A chat room. So thank you. In this series of GRC Summit events, we have an annual activity in awarding lifetime achievement. This lifetime achievement is awarded to figures who have a career and dedication in developing GRC practices, especially in Indonesia. We invite the committee for the Lifetime Achievement Award. The committee will explain the process of selecting the figures to receive this award. To the committee. Okay, to Mr. Asad Nugroho, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. His Excellency, the Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, the Board of Association, resource person and panelists, and the participant of the GRC Summit 2021. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, praise and gratitude pray for the presence of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Because of the abundance of His grace, we can attend the 2021 GRC Summit even today in good health and nothing less. As we know, GRC has grown in Indonesia in the last decade. This is inseparable from the contribution of the many parties, both in the business sector, academia, intellectual, and policymakers. All parties have worked together to create a better business climate through the integrated GRC. This effort continue to be carried out together tirelessly. Alhamdulillah, this has given good result as we see today. The GRC Association is one of the forum aimed at continuing to encourage the development of the GRC in Indonesia. One of our efforts is to give award to figures who have played an important role in developing and practicing GRC in their organization, and of course in Indonesia more broadly. This year, GRC Association again awarded the GRC Lifetime Achievement Award. We use a dozen criteria as a reference, and some of the important things include: one, have practiced GRC in the organization for more than half their age or have experience in more than 25 years. Two, have a strong commitment to teach and develop GRC practices in Indonesia and enrich GRC literacy. Three, have a clean track record. And four, never will be involved in corruption, collusion, and nepotism that are exposed by the media. After going through quite a tough discussion, we finally choose two eminent persons who really deserve in this award, namely, first, the late Mr. Fred Tumbuhan. He was an expert in business, finance, banking, and corporate law. Second, Mr. Zulkifli Zaini. He is a professional and practitioner of GRC, currently as the President Director of PT PLN Persero. On behalf of the entire board of the Indonesian GRC Association, we would like to congratulate both of them, and we hope that this award will have a positive impact on the development of GRC Indonesia. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Asad Nugroho. Okay, now it is time to pay our tribute to the figures who contribute to practicing and developing of GRC in the organizations. This ceremony will be led by Mr. Mas Ahmad Daniri. He is chairman of the GRC Association. To Mr. Mas Ahmad Daniri, the time is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you, even in the pandemic condition. Of course, I will, before I ask to Pak Zulkifli Zaini, let me explain why Mr. Zulkifli Zaini were to hold Lifetime Achievement GRC Award in the GRC Summit 2021. First of all business process wherever he leads are always carried out through an integrated GRC approach. Mr. Zulkifli Zaini has leadership in implementing GRC, always uses the people and the system approach. Tone at the top, running smoothly, can be a role model in the implementation of GRC at PLN. Culture transformation program for the success of GRC successfully implemented 24 breakthroughs to support PLN's 4 pillars of transformation, such as lean, green, innovation, and customer focus. Business culture and leadership transformation was carried out through a holistic approach completely. Digitizing business process supported by effective socialization and education, equal treatment for a professional manner between the subsidiary companies and external suppliers towards a clean PLN through the implementation of ISO 27001, implementation of CSV in partnership with each stakeholders. Last but not least, the success of leading PLN, which continues to make profits during the pandemic through the implementation of GRC in 2020, managed to record a net profit of 5.9 trillion, an increase of 36.7%. Okay,
Saya Budi Sadikin, Menteri Kesehatan Republik Indonesia. Saya juga merupakan anak didik Pak Zul dan pernah menjadi bawahan Pak Zul. Itu adalah sebutan akrab saya kepada Bapak Zulkifli Zaini yang sekarang menjabat sebagai Direktur Utama PLN Indonesia. Selama saya menjadi bawahan Pak Zul, saya merasakan sekali bahwa beliau itu sering dilihat orang kaku, tetapi sebenarnya beliau sangat hangat. Dan saya merasakan kakunya itu terutama untuk mempertahankan prinsip-prinsip governance, prinsip-prinsip tata kelola yang selalu beliau junjung tinggi. Oleh karena itu, saya tidak heran kalau Pak Zul mendapatkan penghargaan sebagai salah satu tokoh yang terbaik dalam melakukan tata kelola, terutama di bidang risk, governance, dan compliance. Karena sudah 10 tahun saya bekerja sama dengan beliau, dan saya sangat tahu, memang itulah beliau. Bukan hanya dalam perkataan, tapi juga dalam perbuatan, dan yang paling penting, keyakinan beliau yang paling dalam, selalu memastikan bahwa tata kelola, risk, governance, dan compliance itu merupakan sesuatu yang selalu ada di hatimu. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan selamat Pak Zul. You deserve this one. Terima kasih.
To Mr. Zulkifli Zaini, please give a few words.
Dear Steering Committee GRC Summit, Mr. Mas Ahmad Daniri, Mr. Dr. Antonius Alijoyo, whom I respect, Deputy for Coordination of State-Owned Enterprise Business Development, Mr. Monty Giriana, two speakers, panelists, hosts, and audience that I cannot mention one by one. On this occasion, allow me to express my gratitude for the GRC Lifetime Achievement Award given to me. This is certainly a matter of pride as well as a trust that I must maintain as well as possible. Throughout my career, starting as an officer to getting the mandate to lead several large companies in Indonesia, there are some simple principles that I continue to hold to this day. Let me humbly share some of these principles which I feel are relevant to this GRC Summit Forum. Being a leader, our main task is to make decisions. The higher our position, the more important and strategic decision we make. Although you can also choose not to make a decision, which means that you allow the problem you are facing to remain in the current situation or even worse. That is why I have a principle not to delay any decision that must be taken. For that, it is important for us to be able to measure every risk to the decision we take, whether it is operational risk, financial risk, legal and compliance risk, to fraud risk. We must also measure so that it becomes a strong basis for consideration for every decision we make. And speaking of governance, one key sentence I always pass on to my entire team, that is not to have a conflict of interest. We must, for only one purpose, which is perform our duties solely in the best interest to the company we run. By not having a conflict of interest, our head will be clear, our heart will be calm because we know that every decision we make is solely for the good of the company. Of course, I hope that in the implementation of governance, risk, and compliance in Indonesia will continue to improve in line with the increase in our collective awareness. That is in order to keep our company and even our country sustainable. We must enforce good corporate governance and increasingly implement a risk-aware culture in every decision we make. That's all I can say. Once again, thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Congratulations to Mr. Zulkifli Zaini. Thank you for your dedication. Hopefully, the contribution will continue to take a part in making a better GRC implementation for a better Indonesia. Okay, we're moving forward to Mr. Daniri. Please introduce the second figure. Mr. Daniri, please unmute the mic. Okay.
Okay, again, congratulations for Pak Zulkifli Zaini. Selamat dan semoga barokah.
Okay, so Mr. Daniri, please introduce about Mr. Fred Tumbuhan.
Yeah, I know Pak Fred Tumbuhan long ago. I think he was the lawyer, legend lawyer in Indonesia. He contribute for the law number 40/2007 regarding the perseroan terbatas, ya. He contribute a lot for good corporate governance in Indonesia. I think he wanted to get also the achievement award, yeah, in long life when he still live in Indonesia. Thank you.
Perkenalkan, saya Irwan Habsyah, mantan Wakil Ketua KNKG 2016-2019. Ya, Bapak Fred Tumbuhan adalah guru saya dalam memahami governansi korporat sejak krisis perbankan moneter pada tahun 1998. Kami sempat bersama di KNKG pada masa-masa yang lalu. Beliau sangat memberi pencerahan kepada saya khususnya mengenai board duties and responsibilities dari aspek hukumnya. Juga beliau adalah salah satu tokoh utama dalam menyusun undang-undang PT yang sekarang kita kenal ini. Saya sangat terkesan dengan kepiawaiannya dalam menyusun kalimat-kalimat tepat pada waktu kami mempersiapkan bersama pedoman-pedoman governansi. Ini terbukti karena beliau menguasai dengan sangat fasih, minimal yang saya tahu 3 bahasa, yaitu Indonesia, Inggris, dan Belanda. Semoga amal bakti beliau dapat mengembangkan governance di Indonesia menjadi inspirasi bagi kita semua dan generasi yang akan datang berikutnya untuk mewujudkan governance yang lebih baik seperti yang dicita-citakan oleh senior kita Bapak Fred Tumbuhan.
Okay, to the awardee representative, please give a few words.
Good afternoon all. On behalf of our late founder and senior partner, Mr. Fred B.J. Tumbuhan, I, Jennifer Tumbuhan, the daughter of Mr. Fred Tumbuhan, and successors of the firm Tumbuhan and Partners, am truly honored to be part of this virtual ceremony and to receive this Lifetime Achievement Award in appreciations of Mr. Fred Tumbuhan, outstanding commitment, leadership, and contributions in governance, risk management, and compliance. Having been able to work with him as one team and experience at firsthand about his philosophical thinking and reasoning, I can confidently say that he truly cared about fairness and reasonableness. It is these principles that has always been his foundation and motivations in dedicating his life for the development of knowledge and practice of law, especially in the field of good corporate governance in Indonesia. I hope that I, together with the Tumbuhan Partners team, can continue his legacy and stay motivated and dedicated as he always has been, even until the end of his life at the age of 83 years. Our sincere gratitude to GRC Association and all members for making this event possible, to the respectable nomination team, and to the entire attendees of GRC Summit 2021, who have made it all possible in the first place. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank
This
you.
is the award to Pak Fred. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ahmad Henry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for Mr. Fred Tumbuhan's dedication and devotion in this field. Also, congratulations to the family. Next, to Mr. Daniri, please say a few words to officially close this award ceremony.
Okay, thank you very much for all my colleagues and also all the participants. Hopefully, this event will be beneficial for our country, Indonesia, and then also for good governance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will take a break for 5 minutes. Please make sure you're back in the Zoom meeting at 10:10 Indonesia Western Time sharp. And afterwards, we will proceed to the GRC survey explanation and panel discussion. See you.
See you.
See you.
Hi there. Have you ever heard about governance, risk and compliance? I bet you do. But how about the competency certification of them? Nowadays, it has never been so important for organizations to equip their people with these competencies. The question is, how could you be sure that the achieved skills are well standardized? Well, you're gonna need a competency certification for it. But when you're about to choose a competency certification body, you'd have to make sure that the certificates are issued by a credible institution. Why does it matter? It surely relates to the validity, acceptance, and recognition of the certification itself. A quick way to know the credibility: look whether they have an official license or got accredited by relevant regulators. LSPMKS has the BNSP license and has gotten the ISO 17024 accreditation by CAN. So, these two attributes ensure the whole assessment processes are carried out based on the standard that has a high level of reliability. LSPMKS specializes on the area of governance, risk management, and compliance. And since 2016, LSPMKS has rendered the services for more than 4,700 candidates, and up to now, we have more than 4,000 active certification holders. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next, and beyond. Hi there! Many organizations in a wide array of sectors are expected to do good governance practice. How could one be so sure an organization is capable to do a good one? Well, it all depends on the individual competencies of its people. You can have an impeccable system, but without competent resources, everything will go straight down the drain. That said, LSBMKS helps organizations to meet their need to improve the individual competencies on governance. LSBMKS adopts a good corporate governance implementation standard of KNKG and OECD, and we would also include the governance standard of ISO 37000. And by going in line with international standards and best practices, equipped by the BNSP license and ISO 70024 accreditations, the benefits you've gotten surely are a lot. So, let's upgrade your competency for now, next, and beyond. Hi there! I bet you've come across the term risk management quite a lot. Especially recently, the world we live in is packed with uncertainties. That said, organization has to involve risk management in order to maintain its sustainable growth. Everybody has their own target, so everybody has their own risk to achieve that. Well, it makes everybody a risk manager. So, every individual will need to be competent in doing risk management for the organization to be mature in it. But, you gotta make sure that everybody is on the same page. You'd have to have the same basis for it, upon which mutual understanding will be cultivated. LSBMKS helps organizations to prepare their human resources to be competent in risk management based on the ISO 31000. And our assessment tools and activities are also based on it. Quick fact, ISO 31000 is an international standard of risk management.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we move forward to the panel discussion, let us see and discern the result of the GRC survey held by the Center of Risk Management and Sustainability, CRMS. Mr. Antonius Alijoyo, as the principal of CRMS, will explain the result of the survey. Hopefully, the explanation can be some insights for you to discuss in the next session. To Mr. Antonius Alijoyo, the time is yours.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the GRC Survey Result 2021, which will be shared as follows. Okay, the GRC Survey 2021 actually conducted by the Center for Risk Management and Sustainability in supporting the GRC Summit. And I would like to share with you only the highlight today. The survey actually participated by more than 200 respondents. In this case, more and most coming from financial services, as well as some of the real sector, especially electricity, gas, steam, and air conditioning supply. And then the demographic for the participants are senior manager and department head, as well as the chief risk officer. So it is actually a kind of representation of the thought and viewpoint of the practitioner and industry. The most considerable risk faced by the organization today, according to this result, actually is more on the pandemic, which is very natural because this is a current phenomenon whereby we are all in that situation. Therefore, the second, the third, and the fourth, and the fifth are quite important for us to put as our agenda in the next coming year. The second one is the legal and regulatory compliance. This is actually quite phenomenal because we understand that in one hand, legal and regulatory compliance is expected to help us to have a more ground, to be more competitive, to be more at the level of global competition, but at the same time, it's going to be the challenge for the organization which are not ready yet. So this is something that becomes the agenda of the future, that we need to anticipate proactively what the legal and regulatory compliance or requirements, and then we make our organization ready. Second, on the cyber information security, especially the data protection, that's the cyber risk become actually coming as a priority agenda, not only the board of directors, but all the business process around the organization itself. The fourth, the economic instability and the technology shift. This is all in all are the risks that considerable be faced by the organization today and the very near future. Next, if we look at another highlight is about the responsibility, who are actually expected to lead the integrated GRC strategy within the organization. The results show the expectation are actually within the board of director responsibility, as well as the president director or the CEO responsibility. So this is actually quite rational, that whereby in Indonesia, the executive board of director, or we call it direcsi, are expected to lead the company executively through the decision-making and action toward the company value creation. That means that the GRC should be implemented aligned with the strategy of the company toward the goal and mission and vision. And therefore, they put the expectation, they put the role of the board of director actually are the one who's supposed to be responsible leading the GRC strategy across the board. Next, this is a very important result, I would say. Based on the result, surveys say that significant barriers to integrated GRC nowadays in organization actually consists of four. The first one, if we look at here, basically they identify lacking of human resources who have the competency in integrated GRC. This is actually not striking, but this is a very critical for us to table this result. Why? Developing people requires some time, while actually integrated GRC becoming more and more important, becoming more and more urgent for us to implement. So the lack of human resources need to be tackled, need to be addressed by having more and more people get ready on board on the GRC side. Second, the available system, application, and technology which can be aligned with the GRC need. This is the application, this is the platform which come naturally when the need of implementing GRC become priority. But again, the application, digital platform, whatever it is, will not work without the competent human resources. So it comes together. Now the third is the lack of compelling sources, information, and method of integrated GRC. If we look, this is quite controversial because in one hand, we understand there is more and more regulation actually impose us to implement GRC, either on its own or perspective, governance, risk management, compliance, or they come together as one of single buckets of, we call it as integrated GRC implementation. Therefore, if someone still see a lack of compelling sources, perhaps in their mind is talking about what is the imperative, what is actually the regulation with the punishment if we don't implement it. This is something actually very reactive thinking, a very reactive attitude, which is supposed to be challenged because nowadays we need to be anticipative, we need to be proactive in order to make us ready, whenever it is as a must or it is a mandatory required. Now, the fourth, as a result is the belief that integrated GRC will not create much value in the organization. This can be understood as follows. If we look at the expectation, like the very short-term expectation, like producing a certain product, I put the resources and then process, and there is an output. So if we implement GRC, then we process it and we expect certain output. So it won't be the case. Like the education, if we take our kids to the school, at the elementary school, within 6 years, we don't get any value of our kid. After, say, secondary high school, we don't get the outcome yet. Even after senior high school, that's only 12 years. But perhaps after, say, the college, so the 12 plus another 6, that's 18 years that you can expect, your kid work in the good company, create the value by producing the salary, the remuneration, and perhaps also the career. And then he's there turning back to the value creation. You need a time for something like GRC. You need a kind of something not producing the very short-term period. So this is a long-term view. So then all in all, the significant barrier to integrate GRC is all driven by the human being, with the human perspective, from the board of directors up to the executor at the front line. Now, I would like to finish just sharing the result of the survey, very clearly only the key point, which actually we do hope that from the GRC Summit, as well as from the proposition by the industry, we can build enough availability of people competent in GRC, implement it, get the most of it, and then create value to sustain in the future. Not only just survive in the amid of COVID-19, but also we build the resiliency and the ability to create value sustainably, not only now, but also the future. So the full report can be downloaded in the following www.crmsindonesia.org. So thank you so much. Good day and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you for the insights, Mr. Ali Joyo. Now, we are entering the second session of the GRC Summit panel discussion. We will invite Ms. Sri Rahayu. She will lead the panel discussion session as the moderator, and there will also be a presentation from the panelists. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Sri Rahayu. She is the founder and managing partner of Rahayu and Partners Law Offices. She has more than 23 years of experience as a lawyer, specializing in banking and finance, mergers, acquisitions, and strategic alliances, infrastructure, plantation, corporate and international trade, and dispute resolution. Recently, she was included in the ALIS 2019 Asia Business Law Journal's ranking of Indonesia's top 100 lawyers. What an astonishing achievement. Before we proceed to the session, I would like to remind you, for all the participants, if you have any questions, please write your questions in the Q&A chat room in Zoom meeting with the format we provided. Name, underscore company underscore question underscore speaker. All selected questions will be answered in discussion and Q&A sessions. All right, without any further ado, to Ms. Sri Rahayu, the time is yours. To Ms. Sri Rahayu, please unmute the mic.
Okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry about that. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for the introduction. A small glitch there on my part. Apology to everyone. It is my great pleasure to e-meet or Zoom meet with all of you. Very good morning, selamat pagi to all participants of GRC Summit 2021. For the seminar and also master class. And also very warm and best regards I would like to extend to the panelists, Bapak Adrianus Darmawan, Bapak Andi Novianto, and Bapak Yogo Purwono. Allow me to introduce each one of you briefly to all the participants. Pak Adrianus Darmawan has the extensive experience in risk management. He was graduated Magister Management from the University of Indonesia. He is now heading risk management with Asuransi Allianz Indonesia. Prior to that, he was with Bank Permata, handling planning and strategic banking corporation. And before that, he was also with Ernst & Young at Management Risk Consultancy unit or department. At that time, he was contributed to the consultancy services in the governance on the industrial level, and also involved in the development of master plan financial services institutions of non-bank from 2010 to 2014. His extensive industry project cover banking and finance, asset management, insurance, telecommunication, mining, food, manufacturing, utility, energy, media, logistics, and of course, financial institutions. Selamat pagi, Pak Adrianus. The second panelist is Bapak Novianto. He is at the moment Assistant to Deputy Minister for Oil and Gas, Mining and Petrochemicals of the Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. His tasks mainly for coordination, synchronization, and implementations policies for state-owned enterprises, research and innovation, such as development of oil refinery, biofuel, tin, coal, and aromatic. He was born in 1962, obtained doctoral degree from Tohoku University, Japan in 2001, majoring resource and environment economics. And before working at the current position, he was staff at the National Planning and Development Agency. And until today, he was maintaining a very strong relationship to develop policies within line ministries, as well as the state-owned enterprises. And of course, he was also involved in many international agencies such as World Bank, IEA, ADB, and APEC. The last panelist is Dr. Yogo Purwono. born in 1972. He is financial economist and very senior lecturer in the Graduate School of Management, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universities of Indonesia. And he is very knowledgeable, has so many research and work as well, particularly in quantitative subject in master or doctoral in finance program. His work focusing on the empirical approaches based on econometrics and actuarial science for capturing the dynamic. He served guest researcher in a very prestigious institutions such as Bank Indonesia, Lembaga Penjaminan Simpanan, and Otoritas Jasa Keuangan during 2006 until 2020. And then he also sit in the various member and the latest in the BPJS Ketenagakerjaan. So he was sitting as the Audit and Actuarial Committee of Oversight Board. He was doctor in 2017, in a banking and finance from the University of Indonesia and University of Groningen. So without further ado, we have a very distinguished panelist, and we have about 45 minutes for all the panelists to present their material. Each has 15 minutes, Bapak-Bapak, and I would like to ask Bapak Adrianus Darmawan to deliver the material first. Please, Pak, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bu Sri Rahayu. That's a very kind word and the extensive explanation of my background. So allow me to start with the first slide regarding the background of Allianz. Can I ask the assistance from the organizer to share the slide? The next slide, please. So, quick background of the Allianz. We have been present in more than 70 countries for 131 years old, with 150,000 employees worldwide. So we've been in this world quite a while, and have sustained multiple shocks, multiple stress conditions in the world. Next page, please. Well, our presence in Indonesia was about 40 years ago. Well, for Allianz Life, where I work, we have just turned 25 years this month, actually on the 16th of August. So we are in the prime age, as we call it. Next page, please. So I'll offer to start with this one. I'm sure you all have a good story and success story in implementing GRC. So in today's 15-minute sessions, not very long, allow me to share my experience from my own point of view on how the GRC helped Allianz Indonesia. As an organization, we navigate through the uncertain situations. Some of these elements that made it work, such as the system of governance requirement, might not apply for other sectors. But I hope some of the key elements are transferable and can be the point of reference for your implementations. So to start with, it's a change of mindset, I believe. This is my own experience. So coming in from the background with a structured regulatory requirement, which our group adhere to the Solvency II from BaFin at Germany, European, and locally we are adhering to the OJK regulations. So I used to think that GRC with its structures is similar with the structure in the middle. Its layers of requirements would be described or illustrated as solid rigid frame. Somewhat would be like this building. So if you can see the building, it's quite a bit solid, rigid, and it needs to be fixated somewhat. So having experienced the COVID and the tremendous uncertainties that we face day to day, so I would say that it's a blessing, thanks God, that I have the opportunity to be at the center of the anticipations and the response for this COVID. No one knows back then what was that NCOV. So outlined here on the left side, these are the areas where I am at the helm. So I'm the CRO, at the same time the crisis head, and also for the capital management, and also the governance caretaker for the country, and also for the executive accountability regime. So it's pretty much quite at the center of the storm. So I had the chance with this to test my own thesis of how things could work, and also modify the approach to enable the achievement of our objective. So with that, my mindset changed that GRC could be described as this one. So if you see there, the elements can move, so as outlined on the right side. But what is important that Antonius also said is what in the center, what makes these elements work, what makes us move in sync as one company. So we have the same goal, we have the same unified element, unified code, and unified language. So that's what I'm trying to share today. So let's see, next page, please. So GRC for resilience, this is the aim for today's topic. So having governance risk compliance framework in place enable any company to have this structured approach. And there are dimensions of the risk management, controls, and other aspect, the other elements that help us to anticipate the operational aspect, financial aspect, or even the compliance aspect. So for me, GRC in a sense about prudent, risk-conscious decision-making, owning it and systematically maintaining the all elements intact, as I shared with this cube. We need to have this intact, not to break it apart, while we move and navigate throughout the uncertainties. So my opinion is about the taking of the ownership, being accountable, collaborate as organizations to achieve our objective. So at the core factors such as people that Antonius also mentioned earlier, culture, organization commitment that define the outcome. So choices that we made and how we walk the talk. So our resilience throughout the pandemic was a result of teamwork. So we started the journey even years back when our group aimed for a digital capability. So we have this renewal agenda that help us to move in line with the group, and we all aiming for the same direction. As a result, Allianz Life generated sustainable growth, and we were ranked #1 and the last InfoBank research in July. So that is the result of these collaborations as an organization, one team. So the next page, please. So here's my slice of life, basically. So I choose to share the period beginning of 2020 when the storm was just brewing in the beginning. No one knows what was happening. So it was us in the middle of the process, emerging risk scanning, what we call it. So we found out about the news about NCOV the first week of January, but we had the flooding back then, if you recall. So while working on the flood response, helping our colleagues, getting them to safe, and also at the same time, ensuring the operational capability of the company, we track how this NCOV evolves. So as the number of the infection increase, we assess the risk, and as the situation escalated, we communicate to the management and further to the board of commissioners. So as shown here, are the entity level controls number 11 and number 7. So sometimes we hear about the entity level controls and how that would help us in terms of the resilience. So this is my personal experience on that. So then I was mandated to lead the anticipations. This was before we as an organization, we declare crisis situations. So we started to have local coordination, small working group. We obtain necessary support for the staff, vitamin, sanitizers, masks, also distributed in January. And we have also mobility across Asia and Europe for our colleagues for business trip and other. So risk assessment on countries is also needed. So on the top, as you see there, we also check and review the risk within the target, the designated countries that we usually have a travel. And we took initiative, implemented travel advice for our community early on. And also to spread, in order to understand the spread, we also conduct continuous assessment. And with regards to that, we need to have an action.
Apa-apanya dia, lupa.
Yes, Pak. Any comments? Okay, let me continue. So we established additional emergency process during that time, as we need to purchase a lot of stuff. We need to purchase laptops. We need to purchase many things. And we implement the additional emergency procurement that was approved by the management. So this enabled us to take decision with speed and while remain prudent. So this is entity level control number 27. So we also prepare for the worst, meaning the piece of the people could not get to office due to the spread of virus. So we learn from the lockdown policy in China that may be replicated to other countries. So we anticipate about it. And we were actually, as an organization, we were in the process to shift to laptops for all people to work from to enable them work anywhere. However, it was in the middle of the process, so we were waiting for the laptops to come from the manufacturer. Therefore, many of our staff still use PC. So this GRC, the process that in place, the commitment from the management help us to speed up the process. We managed to obtain purchase from the local market before the border was closed. Thus, we able to obtain the necessary device just right before the border was closed with our required spec. So the required spec is quite high. So therefore, it's not easy to get the device. So with that, we were able to help the skeleton team around 130 to work remotely by the second week of February. And by the March, we have managed to bring home most of the people. By 1st April, 95% of the staff were work from home. So this was something that in the past, I would not imagine it would happen, but COVID being the catalyst for this improvement, as we say. So, and also as transparency, we provided reports to our stakeholders, and the unexpected additional costs also captured. Operates are upstream to our system, and the financial figure, the implications were further flows into the capital modeling. So we use this as a risk buffer for the planning. So every year we do the risk buffer planning into the capital for the following year. So this was also included for our plan in 2021. And discussion on the topic of the capital management also occurred in May. This is our entity control number 12. And we also adhere to regulations. Every day we check the regulations and we establish the requirements. For example, this one that highlighted here is number 328 from Ministry of Health. And we established the formal local COVID response team. Although that we have already the working group since January. So this is just a snapshot of a few of the entity control that executed. So with the background of the Solvency II from the Europe, we are actually have more of from this. We have 23 elements of system of governance with 30 entity level controls and also the details on each of one of those items. But probably that will be for some other times. So what I learned back then, that things move so fast. We trust our muscle memory basically to run these controls. It was not like at day one, I just checked entity control level number 11, 15 are to be executed, but we know what to do. We know what to do because we have the framework in place. That was what I learned. So it needs time, it needs a process, it needs a journey to make this happen. And you may notice also the yellow icon in the middle. It's the communications. It's a key element This is our entity control. Number 10, we set priorities. We work with the priority for staff to be safe while ensure the service to customer and business partner, and also manage performance. As you see, this is the priority that we hold on since last year and communicated over and over again throughout multiple forum, for example, town hall and corporate communications email. So this is the singular message that we use. So, and this is also supported with our organizational value. We have this value of care. So I believe it brought the best quality from each of us, supporting each other during this time. With that, the CEO communicated down to the managers and to staff. And during the day-to-day, we do the communications and collaborations to be able to anticipate. So the crisis team is actually at the center of the coordinations. So we also manage several chat group to enable the staff raise issues. We have also hotline numbers and dedicated email that established prior to this 2019 that are proven to be very helpful for the colleagues to contact us. So back again, communications is the key throughout this pandemic. We have daily management meetings since March 2020 until today. So only weekend and public holiday that we do not have the meetup. It can be long, 1 hour, it can be short when there is no specific concern. So in this forum, I share the update to management and propose the action plan next step with the decision based on the fact and data driven. So that leads to the next slide that I would like to share. So this is outlining our snapshot of our daily activities, where we execute, we monitor the policy that we decided. So the key or the aim is the timely anticipations. So note that only 2 people in the crisis team, center coordination, is just me and one of the members. So without teamwork, without inclusiveness that we have, we as an organization would not be able to remain resilient. So since the beginning, we established the framework, the mechanism, the information, defining information that is important for decision making, for the management to decide and move forward. So as outlined here, you can see the title, you can see the indicators. We track 7 days and 14 days average of new cases. We don't see daily, so because we want to see the trend. We want to see a much more stable indicators. And it's not just that, daily and historical death case are also tracked. We check our hospital partners' bed occupancy ratio on weekly basis. We check the bed occupancy ratio on the public also. This helps us to take precautions. Even prior to the recent wave, we pull back the people from 20% back to 9% and then back to down to 5%. And one of the key indicators is the people working in the office. So when we set a certain level allowed, we track down daily basis from the access tab record. So if you can imagine, one individual can tap on more than 10 or 15, and when the office was more with people, it could mean thousands of data points to be processed daily. So we really based on the data for the decision. And for every single confirmed case, we trace down the close contact while ensuring there is no discriminations. We maintain privacy and we check their statement with the access data to reconfirm presence in case any of those people forget. So, and then we also provide the anticipation with antigen and PCR tests. And during this daily meetup, we also discuss about the government policy, where we assess the implications, we take anticipations. By doing this, we have managed to pass 4 times site inspections, where all of those without pre-notifications. So we just found out when the authorities were on the ground and inspect the rooms, and we have quite several rooms, several floors. So you can imagine the surprise that we had. And most of all, the leadership plays a key role in this process. Through this process, we discuss the operational aspect of the business. Is there any financial concern, strategic issues that business may face, and also the communication strategy. In a certain situation, we also need to make decisions. For example, additional support needed for staff, decisions are also channeled further to execute through the respective function, be it the HR and also involvement from the leaders. So the leaders took ownership, accountability to ensure that we move in line with our priority to achieve the objectives. So they cascade down to the team and ensure that the team follows what we have decided. And throughout this process, we also encourage our team to get vaccinated, not easy. So we registered and coordinated more than 1,000 people. And also, whenever possible in the beginning, we were involved with OJK to provide the vaccinations for the public as well. So with that, what I can outline is that the collaboration was the key and inclusiveness was the key. And with that, I can extend my reach, although we were only 2 people. I can any given time I can check and ask for immediate action. For example, during the day I would have upstream information regarding the people at the office. If there is any indications of health protocol is not followed, people open the mask. I can ask the security to remind them or take action, take notes of the name, and I will ask the leaders to take action. So that is a snapshot of what we are doing day to day. The next page, please. So here's the communications. So we utilize town hall for cascading the message. We utilize the digital enablers and on the left for the people that coming back to the office, people that need to be working at the office for the ASDRP submissions and also other things. And in that form, we also have a declarations that an awareness that the people that are having symptoms, they are not allowed to go to the office. People with higher risk, we encourage and at this time we forbid to come to the office. During this challenging time, it's not easy. So for some of the colleagues, it might be more challenging as well. So therefore, on the right side, you can see the support from our organizations. So how the team can support each other, including employee assistance program, and also the activities for the employee engagement. So we have like the painting session, we have storytelling sessions, and others that are created mostly on weekly basis. And for every single people that are confirmed positive, the CEO contacted them one by one, extending the greetings and also the speedy recovery. And we support them with the oximeter and also fruit and others. And recently, due to the availability, we changed it into a different type of benefit. The meaning is, my point is that we are trying to ensure that the colleagues are safe and well, and we do whatever we can to make that happen. Only by doing that, we can ensure the delivery of services to the customer and business partner, and further to the maintaining our performance. So can I check, Bu Rahayu, how many minutes that I have? I think is.
Thank you, Pak. Only 1 minute to go.
All right. So the remaining slides are much more on the requirements from the regulatory point of view. So the next slide. I will skip this. Okay. Yes, these are from the Solvency II requirements, the generic requirements and also specific requirements. You can read it by yourself, and the information is also available. The next one. This is also from the risk management discipline, as we are following the OJK regulations. Next slide. So this is how we implement the internal controls in the company. So we have layers of functional controls. We have this integrated risk and control system whereby we integrate between us, the risk function, legal and compliance, and internal audit. And we have the process to provide the assurance to the management. And we have the map, the control testing map for a 5-year period. So on our side 3 years, on audit 5 years, we combine this as an integrated control assurance map. So my apology that due to time, I will jump to the last one. Yes, this is the key from what we have discussed today. So as I said, might not be all of the story that I share applicable to you, but this is the lesson learned that I have. So at the core, the code of conduct that drives the value of the company, that is matter. And then the agenda of the company, where we want to be, that is really matter, regardless the type of the company. And then the foremost is the understanding the threat that we are facing, bring everyone involved and collaborate, be transparent and communicate, bring that on the table for a risk-conscious decision making, set priority, don't forget about regulatory requirements, clear responsibility needs to be set also, people needs to be accountable, and then take actions with a prudent manner. With that, we still need to have a periodic review for a check and balance. Doing this, from my standpoint, from what I experienced, this help us, as I outlined, at the center, there is the part where we can be intact, moving together as one. So not breaking apart when the situations are very challenging in current difficult times. So I hope that would give you insight of what can work in your company. So thank you for the time. Sorry if I take much more of the time as provided. Back to you, Ibu Rahayu. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Adrianus Darmawan. May I now ask Bapak Andi Novianto to deliver the presentations, Bapak, please.
Thank you, Ibu Sri Rahayu as a moderator, and also other panelists, Pak Adrianus Darmawan and Pak Yogo Purwono. Thanks for the GRC Summit this morning. On behalf of Deputy Minister for State on Enterprise Development, Research and Innovation, Mr. Viriana, I will convey materials related to the implementation of GRC and then its policy and development direction from the point of view of regulators and the public sectors. Let me share my slide. Can you see that? Sorry. That I'm not able to share the slide, or maybe anyone that can help sharing my file. So my title here is strengthening GRC implementation for economic recovery. Next, please. During the pandemic of COVID-19 causes three continuous crises, which are public health crisis, real economic crisis, and then the financial economic crisis. Each crisis has several impacts, such as first, a number of infected cases, number of recovered, number of treated, mortality ratio, bed occupancy ratio, and then limited number of health workers. Wherein in the real economic crisis, it impacted the GDP, You know that last year we have a contracted growth in our GDP growth, and then consumption, government spending, investment, trade size such as import and export, and then unemployment ratio, number of companies that went bankrupt. Well, for the financial economic crisis, such as a market capitalization, money supply, and asset of PI, bank interest, and rupiah exchange rate, and also credit rating. So these three crises will impact it to the all economy and the social welfare of the people. Next, please. So that we do have a strategy to minimize impact and preparing for recovery. First, to react how to minimizing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, then the three crises caused by the COVID pandemic that has been stated before, and then how to rebuild, preparing post-COVID-19 economic recovery, using approach to economic recovery, how to increase our competitiveness of the economy sector in global market, leverage crisis to solve fundamental problem, and then strengthening the safety net in the all region of Indonesia. This is what we like to do during and then the post-COVID-19. Next, please. So that first, how to react for the public health. Indonesia needs to up their effort in reducing number of COVID-19 cases, infection, and improving patient treatment. So that we have the crisis context, how Indonesia that has been fighting the virus to reduce the health crisis in many ways, including, say, provide health care facility. This is include hospital capacity expansion and mass rapid test, then several border control, what we call first as a PSBB, and then travel bans for foreigners traveling to Indonesia. And then we do have also joined the effort to develop vaccine, say collaborating with other countries such as China, the US, the UK, and then various other measurements such as monitoring daily cases, setting protocol, physically distancing for daily lives, and public transport, work, and school from home, etc. And then, however, all these are not effective enough to reduce the number of people infected, and then several potential issues in managing the public health crisis by the government. This is lacking in contact tracing to minimize and stop virus infection among the people, and insufficient tests to quickly detect the virus, and then ineffective patient treatment due to lacking public infrastructure and ineffective process resulting high COVID-19 mortality rate. So that we have to raise 4.8% last time compared to other countries that average about 3.9%. So that we have three key directions. First, it is tracing, revolutionize contact tracing, and then testing, increase the mass rapid virus testing, and then the treating, how to improve patient treatment. I think we all understand about three directions here. Next, please. So that here I would like to see about the update COVID-19 confirmation case, testing, mortality, and more that which been reported every day. Say first, like a national confirmation case trend, testing, mortality, BOR had rising sharply from June to July and started to decrease again by August. And then so that if we see the data, the daily data, that the weekly average confirmation decreased by 21.82%, and then mortality also, the BOR decreased but testing also decreased by 15.42%. This all the confirmation case of testing mortality board reported daily, so that everyone can see how to the case reported and then how develop day by day. Next, please. So that the control strategy of COVID-19 in our country, we do have tracing here. This is a random test in many bus terminal, train station, and airport. Increasing number of tracing to achieve by WHO standard. So we got 5 contact tracing per 1 confirmed cases. And then for the testing, we encourage the government at district or subnational level to procure lab facilities for PCR tests, and then purchase more testing kit and recruit more volunteers. And then for the vaccination, we have several strategies here, such as involvement of Army and police, involvement of National Population and Family Planning Board, and then optimizing all vaccination centers and expanding operational working hours of the health centers, and then prioritizing high-risk zone, and they are including 8 years or more, or up to more than 18 years older individual and adolescent age, and then also the teenager too. And then active involvement of community leaders to increase community participation. This is treatment also include intensive coordination with Ministry of Health, Ministry of Industry, private sector, and subnational government in ensuring supply of bed, drugs, oxygen, and other treatment facilities too. Next, please. So this is the global economic outlook, and still solid amid the presence of Delta variant. So if you see that in July 2021, and then compared to last year and the last 2 years, so that the growth of economy has been improved. So here say our projection this year around 3.9% growth in 2021, up to 4.4% for Indonesia, compared to the ASEAN, the average of 4.3%, and also other developing nation or countries increase about 6.3%, such as China, India too. While the developed countries, such as the US, increased by 7%, and then European zone by 4.6%. So that in general, we do have improved economic in all region by Q2 of 2021. Next, please.
Mohon maaf Pak, waktunya tinggal 2 menit lagi.
Baik. Thank you, Bu Sri. So this is our domestic economic recovery that I've mentioned is happening. So Q2 already increased by 7%. Next slide, please. And then worldwide governance indicator of Indonesia compared to high income and lower middle income countries too. Here we have several comparison based on OECD data, and then we can see that Indonesia in the ASEAN below Singapore, Brunei, and Malaysia. So we have number 4 from the index of perception of corruption. Next, please. So here, how supporting regulation for governance, risk management, and compliance. So we have ensuring transparent, accountable, responsible, and fair management. We have such regulation from Ministry of Finance, and also Ministry of State on Enterprise. I saw that several from state SOE also involved in this meeting, Ministry of Health too, and also National Standard Agency issue for risk management. Next, please. So this is a strong institution will conduct efficient and effective internal control so that the government also implement agile GRC implementation and whistleblowing system so that if traditional GRC, too many tools and solutions, dynamically updating an integrated process in effective quality, and then we renew by continual monitoring and responsive business decision support and improve shareholder value, so that we do have such a protection and caring environment, and then also a rewarding system and more effective risk management. Ibu Moderator, I think that's all that we like to see. Maybe I can wait for the discussion. Thank you.
Novianto, I'm sure you have plenty of informations to be shared to participants, but I would hope that we can do that in the Q&A sessions. Now I would like to have Bapak Yogo Purwono, Pak, to present your material, please. Thank you, Pak.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Sri. Thank you all panelists. Thank you all participants, and also thank you for thank you to GRC Summit committee that giving me opportunity to share insight or some discussion. Okay, can I ask assistant to share my slide? Okay, thank you guys. Okay, in this short session, I will share with you all introduction to data analytics and its potential application in governance, risk, and compliance processes. Next slide. Yeah, the outline of our talk today is the first one is to understand first the concept of data analytics, and then we move to the types. Sorry, before, yeah, slide number 2. I mean. Slide number 2, Pak Yusuf, sorry. Oh, or can we share? Can I share? Yeah, my slide. Okay. Okay, Bapak Ibu, can you all see our slide?
Yes, the slide is clear, sir.
Okay, yeah. So in this talk, I will explain the basic concept of data analytic, and then the categories of data analytic. And in the final part, I will bring you to some insight on some potential application of analytic in GRC processes. Yeah. Okay, what is data analytic? Yeah, there are many definitions that we can find in the textbook or in the website or journals. Yeah, but here we provide two definitions that one mostly used in their lecture. Yeah, the first one, analytic, is the use of data, IT, statistical analysis, quantitative method, and mathematical or computer-based model. The use of this infrastructure is to help decision maker or manager gain improve insight about their organization, operation, and make better fact-based decision. Yeah. So when we talk about data analytic, it means that we utilize all infrastructure from big data and then analytical tools that is provided by some statistical package, and also help from mathematical or computer-based model. Yeah. So here, using data analytic, we can output some many results, that can give insight for manager or decision maker in business or organization to make better and fact-based decision. Yeah. And then what kind of problems that analytics can potentially help to solve? Yeah, there are many problems in business that analytics can help to solve. Yeah. Either in sales and marketing, either for customer experience, current business management, in improving pricing accuracy, project impact of deviation from pricing parameter, risk management, for especially for assessment, for assessment and monitoring the risk control, risk practice, from day-to-day operation. Also, we can use analytics to solve the problem like fraud detection, for identification fraudulent activities, respond quickly to fraud suspicion, and find fraud patterns. Especially in insurance companies, analytics can enhance the following practice, like underwriting. Here, analytics can help insurance companies to identify best risk and prioritize acceptance effort. Identify applicants for whom additional underwriting is needed, support simplified underwriting. And then in the claim area, analytics can help insurance companies to predict claim frequency and severity. Two important variables, in general insurance, especially to understand the behavior of claim from its customer. And then for reserving, for actuarial work, analytic can help actuaries to more accurate reserve. Next. And then what business question can be addressed by analytic? It's also dealing with four categories or types of data analytic. If we observe from the textbook or the literature, nowadays at least there are four categories or type of data analytic. The first one is descriptive analytic. Descriptive analytic focus on question what has happened in my business over a given period, in the past. Have the number of views gone up? Are sales stronger this month than last? So descriptive analytic focus on describing what has happened in our business in the past over a given period. One can utilize some technique in descriptive analytic, such as mean, mode, quartile, up to standard deviation and up to fatal distribution. And then the second type of analytic is diagnostic analytic. Diagnostic analytic focuses more on why something happened. So the main questions is why something happened in our business, in our revenue, in our bottom of line. This involve more diverse data input and a bit of hypothesizing. For example, did the weather affect beer sales? Did that latest marketing campaign impact sales, and etc. The third business question that can be addressed by analytic is helped by predictive analytics. In predictive analytics, our main question that we want to answer is what is likely going to happen in the near term or in the near term future. So here we use historical information, historical pattern to predict specific outcome using some algorithm. Some modeling technique that we can employ for predictive analytic, like time series analysis, linear regression, logistic regression, and other predictive analytics too. And the fourth kind of data analytic is prescriptive analytic. Prescriptive analytic suggests a course of recommendation, action, and strategies. It is for answer the a question, what course of action that we should do, we should conduct. Here, usually we have had estimated value of some parameters of a model, and from applying descriptive to predictive analytic, then we come up, we use all of those information to model some mathematical optimization problems in order to help us in solving or in answering a course of recommended action and strategies that corporations should do. Some mathematical technique that one can utilize in prescriptive analytic, di antaranya ya itu ada linear optimization problem, and then non-linear optimization problem up to stochastic optimization. If linear and non-linear optimization model, they assume that the economy or the situation is almost certain. Uncertainty is almost zero. But if one want to include uncertainty in the financial market, in the macroeconomy, in the industrial dynamic, then one can borrow a stochastic optimization approach or stochastic optimization model. One example of stochastic optimization problem is to model to find the investment allocation in its asset class, under dynamic situation, in the multiple period time in the future. It is usually faced by pension fund companies, or pension fund management, or insurance companies also can utilize optimization mathematical model to manage to identify optimal asset liability composition, for its asset and liability parts.
Bapak Yogi, mohon maaf, waktunya tinggal 2 menit lagi, Pak. Barangkali, silakan.
Thank you. Jadi, how data analytic can benefit GRC? If one wants to have benefit from applying data analytic to GRC processes, it should be follow the data science life cycle, and then applying data science life cycle to its GRC process in his organization. This is I will give you some example of application of analytics in GRC process. Some dashboard can be employed to monitoring the compliance of its procedure of its work unit. And then we can also apply analytic to plan and monitor implementation of the plan. In advanced style, in advanced level, one can also employ social network analytic, social network analytic to identify fraud, in insurance claim or in praktek pengadaan, procurement, using the assumption that the process of procurement and the process of insurance acquisition up to claim is a system, is a complex system that contain many individual, many actor, having different expectation, having different expectation and different utility. Yeah, so we can use, yeah, so we can apa namanya track, yeah, or identify whether it is a high probability of fraud, yeah, in that system, yeah, using this advanced approach, yeah, social network analytic. Okay, this is some yeah, other application of analytic in internal audit. Yeah, some benefit that can we highlight here, yeah, using data analytic in GRC process. Yeah, it can reduce costs, yeah, since redundant activities are identified and streamlined. It can also potentially reduce gap and error, yeah, or increasing accuracy, yeah, since the integration create a holistic system object, yeah, provide trust research from consistent organizational position and action, and then increase agility with a clear definition of who handles what activities in one sequence, yeah. One final statement, yeah, yeah, properly applied analytic can enhance decision making, lower risk, and uncover insight that organization can use to its competitive advantage. Okay, Bu Sri Rahayu, that's all the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pak Yogo, and to all the panelists. I would like to remind the participants to kindly post any questions, remarks, or comments if you have any in the Q&A box. So far, we are fortunate to have one question. May I read it, Bapak-Bapak? From Pak Dodi, PLM Insurance. He has a question addressed to Pak Darmawan. The question is related to pandemic. So to pandemic response, Alliance do monitoring daily from new cases to hospital availability to make sure everyone's safe and secure, and the company objective still can meet their objective. How big was the capital set aside to make this happen in Alliance? So that is the question. The second question is, due to high rate in last June till July this year, how did you manage hospital availability in that period? Thank you, Pak Adrianus.
Thank you, Bu Rahayu. So unfortunately, although that I cannot share a specific amount regarding the capital set aside, however, we were in the middle of journey enabling the digital capability for the company, and it was already done, already ongoing for more than 2 years. So therefore, when this happened, it's not quite, what I can say, it's still within our boundaries. And also from my side, the BCMN crisis, we had a yearly crisis drill and also the other activities that requires set aside of the budget. So we utilize also those budget as the response. So that's what I can share. And it's not just stopping there. The amounts that we capture, we also use for the models, capital model, for 1 in 10 years and 1 in 200 years, local models and also the regional models. While the second questions regarding hospital availability, during June to July, I admit this is really difficult situations. To support our staff, we were basically standby 24/7 round the clock. Every time we receive the escalations of somebody having health problems, as we always check when the notifications come, how is your situations, how is your health conditions, are you okay? So when we receive the escalation, we involve HR, where they will also communicate with the health providers. With that, we help them to find the hospital, not always able to find, but in terms of the support, we did whatever we can. including involving our colleagues at the functional and departments, what we call the BCM coordinators. We ask them if anyone have any informations, and we check also the website from the government. And from my side, we contact doctors colleagues at the field, those that are handling the COVID, as well as the leadership, the CXO or the head also try to check their respective doctors colleagues as well. So it's basically all hands on deck, no single measures or single solutions to that during that time. So hopefully we don't experience that same situations in the future. I hope that answered the questions, Pak Dodi.
Thank you, Pak Adrianus.
Thank you, Ibu.
Now I move on to the second participants, Bapak Zulfikar from PLN as well. The questions is for Pak Andi Novianto, Pak. In simple practice, how to differentiate one company still in traditional GRC or already transformed to agile GRC, Pak?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Zulfikar. As I mentioned before, in principle, the traditional GRC has 4 aspects, which are too many tools in this or company and complicated solution, and then also dynamically updating of the information, and then an integrated process within the company, and in effective quality control too. And then we have to improve through GRC to agile GRC, focus on more continuous monitoring and increase responsiveness of the company, and then how to speed up the business decision support, and also to improve shareholder value. So as the Pak Zulfikar from the PLN, which is the state-owned enterprise, as a part of a GRC implementation, we have such integrity and ethical value, and then how to oversight of the implementation of the company, and also how to make it more competence when we have choosing the BOD or BOC, and then how to make more accountability of the budget of the company. I think this is my response, Ibu Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak. We have another questions from Ibu Titania. Ibu Titania question is actually for everyone in the panelist member. The question is, based on your experience, what is the value of implementing agile principle in your job? How implementing agile principle could result positive impact toward your organization, especially during the pandemic era? Thank you. Perhaps Pak Dr. Yogo, would you mind answering the questions?
Yeah. Sorry, Bu Sri. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Based on my experience, the agile principle in facing a pandemic condition is a good, good foundation lah, good basis for stay sustain in our job or in our professional practice. I give you an example. Today, beside lecturing and writing a research paper, I also still can give consultation practice ya to some insurance and pension fund ya, pension fund manager ya, to study the asset and liability modeling ya for their activities. Yeah. So I mean for doing that job, yeah, one needs a combination competency of actuarial science and then investment and also risk management, yeah, and quantitative method, yeah. Alhamdulillah, our team, yeah, today have all those requirements, yeah. We have actuaries, yeah, we have a CFA holder, yeah, charter financial analyst holder in our team for studying optimal allocation, yeah, and I am supporting for developing quantitative model, yeah, to analyze asset and liability optimization. Oke, Bu Sri, itu yang bisa saya jawab.
Yeah. Thank you. Andi, if you want to add, Pak, how the principle of agility is actually benefit you in your work and also during this kind of pandemic situations, Pak.
Yeah, thank you. Since for the public sector, so we have seen that the weakness of internal control is the most fraud happens. So we see that from the company, mostly the state-owned enterprise company, the lack of internal control is the most cases. So that it means that we have to improve this first. So we have several regulation to improve the internal control. See for the SOE, which we have to external auditor sets from the BPK, and then also internal audit, and then how to implement compliance so that we can implement the good corporate governance to make it clean, the SOE, and then to report to the KPK about the capacity of the company, and then how to make the e-procurement so that make it more transparent. So I think also the report of if there is any such gratification, I think that's we have implemented so far. Thank you, Ibu Sri.
Thank you. Perhaps the experience within Allianz, Pak Adrianus, would you like to also add on to those questions?
Thank you, Bu Rahayu. So for us, for me personally, my reason for being is to deliver the value. So whether which in organization, we have delivered the value that required by the organizations. That is my biggest back of thought day to day. So with this GRC, I can ensure that the elements are in place and we can drive towards our goal. So for the organizations, one thing that I have observed so far, the stability and the resilience, it is the result of the collaborations that was made enable with the framework in place. So it's not simple, it's quite complex, but with the implementations, proper implementations, give it time for the journey, give the organizations time to learn from the mistake and not repeating the mistake, then we can achieve the objective.
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Pak.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have last questions from Bapak Indra Dihalim from Financial Institutions, Kaswata. What are your suggestions about the best data analytic applications or programs, Pak, or systems that can work to implement the GRC model? So those are the questions directly, in particular, of course, to Dr. Yoko. Silakan, Pak.
Thank you, Bu. This is a very difficult question because it is dealing with apa namanya trademark of software ya.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
I cannot mention ya one apa namanya product or system or package ya gitu, but the one that I can advise to all of you in order to develop analytical capability in your companies or organization, the first thing is to ensure what apa namanya business problem that apa namanya you want to answer you want to solve what kind of apa business problem, so sejauh mana gitu business problem that you want to solve gitu. Jadi apa namanya it needs to identify what kind of apa namanya business apa namanya process line yang that you think it has to use analytics Jadi not all activities approached by analytic so it is better first is to identify what kind of activities in your business that suitable to use analytic and then suggestion for you is to ikuti saja yang itu tadi apa namanya data science life cycle Jadi the first one is define a problem and objective of apa namanya business problem that you want to solve, and then gather the data data mining, and then you apa namanya lakukan data cleansing data cleansing is dealing with apa namanya correcting for inconsistency, missing value, and other uncertainty in the database and go to feature data exploration, and then apa namanya feature meaningful data, and baru apply yang namanya analitik ada apa there are apa tuh tadi ada prediktif, ada preskriptif gitu. Jadi statistik itu is not apa an exact gitu. It is art art and science Jadi ada part of apa namanya part of artnya, part of meaningfulnya, part of communication, part of itu bagian dari apa kebutuhan itu forward gitu untuk apa gitu. Nah, and then di sisi science-nya itu in apa science part-nya itu adalah applying some mathematical or statistical technique Ada many apa obstacle many constraint apa before we apply analytic in full capacity itu harus make sure bahwa resources like human capital that having knowledge of analytic and then availability of the data kalau datanya is still apa low masih sedikit itu juga nanti hasil learningnya itu kurang bagus gitu kira-kira begitu. Jadi ada banyak hal mungkin the first one that we need to identify is digital capability maturity, ya. Jadi seberapa matang gitu digitalisasi itu siap applied in our organization, ya. Kira-kira itu Bu Sri, my answer, ya. Thank you.
Thank you all the panelists. If I may pose you one question to sum up and to summarize all of the panelists' questions, and I would like to phrase it like this, Pak. I pick the one or two key words from Bapak-Bapak. The first is there are value delivery. This is the concerns coming from Allianz, from Bapak Andrianus. The second one is the fragile situations where lacking of internal control is something which is really frightening. The last one is digital capability, which really have to be strengthened and improved, and also in running up and excellent operations to support and help the organization. So in a very short words, but if in the current situations, person movement, activities barrier, lack of internal control is very ultimate problem. What is the recipe or the last wisdom of words coming from all of you, each one of you, for us would be the best to remember, to implement? Maybe I can start with Pak Adrianus, Pak. What is, you have one recipe or one magical message for all of us as a GRC practitioner?
Unfortunately, I don't have one single solution to that. The elements that I mentioned, this cube that comprised of several framework altogether, binding the organizations into one solid movement in going forward. There is no one single solution to that, as the risk management cannot stand alone without the control spectrum and the compliance spectrum, and it cannot be stand alone from the governance itself. The governance, good governance by the discipline itself. So it has to be integrated. We need to break down the silos, talking to each other, communications, exchanging thought. More minds is better than one. And we are, as an organization, any organization will benefit from that. When we set away our ego, functional ego, when we put the minds on the table, on starting from that point forward, these issues can be resolved from one point to the other.
Openness, Pak.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Pak Yogo, is there any thought, Pak?
Sorry, Bu Sri.
Is there any thought coming from you, considering all the hurdles or the limitations? And then we have also been listening to you how important data analytics is for us to survive all the challenges. Is there any more last words that you really want to share with all the participants?
Yeah, one statement that if somebody or corporation want to apply data analytic, ya, please first itu identify their capabilities, ya, their capabilities in terms of human capital, ya, human resources, and then technology, and then validity and consistency of the data you have, gitu ya. And then other, ya, the final thing is the budget, ya, the budget. And ya, as GRC principle in general, it depends on top of the tone, ya. is there a willingness from top management, yeah, to invest, yeah, in technology, in robotic, ya, and machine learning and all. Kira-kira itu Bu Sri yang ini.
Thank you. I'm very keen of waiting from Pak Andi. If the key presentation is about strengthening GRC.
Yeah.
Boleh nggak
Thank
Pak
you.
kita ngintip what is the most langkah yang sudah diambil in your organization, in your department, or in your current positions, Pak, untuk strengthening GRC?
Yeah, we understand that
it's not confidential.
Yeah, I believe GRC is important to increase the performance and also to reach goal of such organization or company. And then I think we have to improve or increase the capacity of human resources of the organization. That's one. And how to make it transparent and of the process of the services. And then also how, as the other panelists mentioned, to improve or implement the digital technology and information. I think that's the key point. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very, very much for all the panelists. We humbly received all the knowledge sharing from all of you this morning. And as a closure to me, I would like to hand over again to Miss Cynthia, the master ceremony of the last sessions. Thank you so much, Bapak. Miss Cynthia?
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the panelists, Mr. Adrianus Darmawan, Mr. Andi Novianto, Mr. Yogo Purwono for the insightful presentations. Also to Ms. Sri Rahayu as the moderator, who nicely led the session. Thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Okay, all right. We're moving forward to the near end of the event. We would like to invite Mr. Antonius Alijoyo to deliver closing remarks on the 2021 GRC Summit seminar. To Mr. Alijoyo, the time is yours.
Thank you, Cynthia. I think my session is the most weighted session because it is a closing remark. Okay, first of all, allow me just 3 up to 5 minutes maximum to deliver some very key points. First of all, is of course, thank you to all audience, hosts, and speaker for your participation, patience, enthusiasm from the morning until the end of panel discussion. There are some highlights as a few takeaways from the keynote, Lifetime Achievement Award survey, and panel discussion. I'd like to share with the audience what has been delivered and shared by Michael Rasmussen, where he said that the organization has to be able to see the tree and the forest as an analogy of individual risk that we have to deal with and interconnectedness of risk and objective. This is very important. Risk should not stand alone on isolation, but it has to be seen in connection of the objective, where actually the risk and objective itself interconnected, and the risk itself among the risks, they are also connected. In this regard, accountability and responsibility should be clear in place to strategize, implement, and put our GRC initiative always relevant and contextual in creating value of the organization now and in the future. That's the value creation is very important. In line with that, we enjoy the panel discussion that take us on sharing some practical experience from the industry, Pak Adrianus, academic, Pak Yogo, and also from the government, Pak Novianto. We thank you so much because we understand the government try to react and the chaotic situation, which is not easy, and the agenda of all the countries on this planet. And we see also they put a lot of effort to rebuild the economy. This is despite the good things. However, we need to understand as individual organization that we need to be ready. Although the public health crisis now, there is an end of the end of tunnel, there is a light, but we must understand the knock-on effect that the public health crisis could become the economic crisis and financial crisis if we are not be careful. So this is actually the agenda of every organization to be ready themselves, because the uncertainty, the risk, the volatility is not over yet. Here, yeah, we we need then, of course, then GRC be implemented, because GRC help us to achieve our objective reasonably through addressing the uncertainty and risk that we becoming more and more in the new normal, and keep acting with integrity where actually the trust rooted naturally. In this case, if I may, I would like to vote that let us build our GRC capability and capacity, and then be ready entering journey to a new normal or new frontier. In this case, actually, I would like to pick up the thematic of our upcoming Risk Beyond. It will be on the 8th up to the 10th of December, talking about entering a journey to a new normal. Yeah, so we need to be ready as well. And then lastly, as the closing, I would like to quote the phrase from Mr. Zulkifli Zaidi from his book. Actually, he's a recipient of the GRC 2021 Lifetime Achievement, where actually during the 20 or 30 years that of his lifetime of the career, he's consistently practicing GRC. There is one thing very good that I would like to share with you. He said that in his book that execution matters. Plan doesn't change anything. So this is very important. If we keep talking, if we keep planning the thing, while that we believe it is the right thing, but we don't do anything, we don't execute anything, it doesn't create anything either. And then, therefore, yeah, it's very important that we have the capability, digital capability, social capability, and make it clear our accountability and share responsibility across the organization, and especially for the board of director and the board of commissioner, we must understand this is our accountability to make our organization ready and act something to embrace the uncertainty and new frontier. So I would like to say again, thank you so much to all the panelists, to all the hosts, to all the speakers that I cannot mention one by one. So stay healthy, and thank you so much for the organizing committee to make this event successful and useful share to all of us. Thank you so much. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy too, Mr. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ali Joyo, for the great closing remarks. Before I end today's session, I would like to inform you of the following matters. As for our input, please give your feedback after leaving the Zoom meetings. And you can download the presentation materials through the link tinyurl.com/material GRC Summit 2021. We've also shared the link on the chat room. And last, day 2 of GRC Summit 2021 Masterclass event will be started at 8 Indonesian Western Time. In the end, thank you for all the enthusiasm in this seminar. For those who take part in Masterclass event, see you tomorrow. And for those who only attend this seminar activities, see you again at another event, Risk Beyond and ASEAN Risk Award 2021. Hopefully we meet in much better conditions. Stay healthy. See you again. See you. Goodbye.